Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
What's up, everyone? Freddie the Pizza Man here, host of the Pizza Man podcast. Now joining forces with ChristopherMedia.net. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, the Pizza Man podcast. And, of course, find all the podcasts on ChristopherMedia.net. We talk Detroit sports. I bring on guests, passions, opinions, all for Detroit sports and more. We even talk pizza. So thanks for tuning in and spread the word.
From Asthma Core Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to Unregimented. This is episode number 232. My name's Aaron.
I'm Rich.
I am the Holy Prophet Todzilla.
Welcome.
Hello.
So there's a lot that I want to get to today. Let's jump right into Trump territory and get that out of the way. Because, well, I mean, it's not really even about Trump. Trump's just involved in, he was just handed this mess and has to decide what to do with it. But, you know, back when Trump was running, and actually before he was even running, he was just very vocally critical of Obama, and especially his handling of Syria. I don't know if you guys remember what he was, the tweets that he was putting out there about, he was saying basically that Obama was weak because he backed down from his stance on Syria using chemical weapons, which he did. And also that you don't, what every other president has done wrong, according to Trump, is that they threatened them with action, with direct action, right? Where Trump says, I'm just going to act. They're not going to see me coming. So now we get to see that play out in real life. What happens when Trump has to be the one to deal with Assad? I mean, that's to be determined. But I don't know if, Rich, if you've followed any of this recent news. But since the chemical attack that happened, Trump tweeted out that to get ready for new smart missiles that he's going to send over.
Yeah.
And also seemed to give a heads up to Russia, which I was kind of confused about that.
Well, didn't one of Russia's people say we don't engage in Twitter diplomacy?
They did, yes.
In response to him.
Right.
And I was just like, well, that's how Trump
that's his
does
only
that's his outlet. That's the way he does diplomacy, is through social media. And once again, it just makes us look like the fucking adolescents of the world. And when Russia looks like the adult in the room, and we look like the fucking petulant children throwing a temper tantrum
right.
online, because mommy and daddy bought me the wrong color iPhone. I don't know.
But what does it mean to tell Russia? I mean, obviously, Russia is the major power involved in this, in Syria right now. And what does it mean is it a threat to Russia, or is it a warning to Russia?
I don't think it's either or. I think it's basically public relations for our eyeballs. He's doing this on Twitter. He wants to be seen as being tough on Russia. It doesn't have anything to do with diplomacy or foreign policy. I think it's just the the public relations tactic he uses via Twitter. No, he's still in campaign mode. He's never left campaign mode. This is a campaign trick, I think, to sort of fellatiate his base. I don't think it has anything to do with Putin or Syria.
Yeah.
Well, as long as he has the appearance of being tough.
Right.
Sure.
His base will appreciate that and lap it up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so far, how many days has it been since the attack in Syria, the chemical attack?
It's the beginning of the week.
Less than a week.
Yeah.
Right. And while we know that, we would assume, based on what Trump has said in the past, that if there is an attack, he's not going to give a heads up. But he doesn't seem to be taking much action on the scene. Who knows? Right. You know, this is stuff that, you know, us average citizens aren't privy to, obviously, but it does seem like just all talk.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of and Mexico's going to pay for it. Yeah, it's just blather coming out of his mouth.
Exactly. That's how I'm reading this, because
do we even see another missile attack though? I mean, is it?
Who knows?
Is it just going to be another attack like last time where they just kind of laughed it off?
Hit an empty building.
Yeah, well, I mean, they flat out said we're going to shoot down any missiles you send, anybody sends our way.
Well, Russia has said that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's questionable as to whether Russia has the ability.
This ain't North Korea.
They can shoot down missiles, yes. Whether they're going to get all the missiles that come in.
You know,
I'm just saying, I don't know if they're getting to the final round of missile command.
It reminds me, I'm tentative to say anything because it reminds me of what I said about the sanctions on China a few weeks ago. You know, that maybe he's just all talk and blah, 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 but you don't know. He's actually playing this game rather well, I guess, in some weird way where you don't know what to expect out of him. You don't know whether to take what he's saying seriously or not. You don't know if it's PR, bluster, or if he's actually conspiring these things in his mind, some sort of retaliatory strike. I don't know.
He doesn't have like a leadership technique. He has a technique of getting shit done.
It's chaos.
Whereas a leader would come in and say, okay, you know, this might be a difficult situation that we have to deal with, but I have to get the people behind me and make sure that they know where I stand. And that's not Trump's stance. He wants to obfuscate as much as possible. And it doesn't matter even if we're a Trump voter or not, it doesn't matter if the citizens have an idea of what Trump's going to do. Right. So that's not really a leader. I mean, it's a manager, and it might be an effective manager.
Right.
And if you want your country run as a business, well, then I guess this is the evidence of it. But a manager is not going to come to the guy who works at as the cashier at the front and go over, you know, the payroll and expenses for that month and make sure that everyone's square with it.
Yeah, make sure they're okay with the overhead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is just more of Trump's style of quote unquote leading, isn't it? I mean, he rules through fear. Anybody can be gone at any moment.
Right.
And
if the fear isn't that I can fire you, then the fear is you don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm a madman.
Exactly. It's the unknown that everyone's like, oh shit. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we wake up tomorrow morning and, you know, there's been an attack overnight while we're all asleep or something. It wouldn't shock me. I don't know. It was kind of the same way when we got Bin Laden, and that came out of nowhere. Yeah. Like, it's not like we knew what was going on. It's not like they were like, okay, so SEAL Team 6 is right now going into a compound. You know, no. It was just all of a sudden, the president's going to talk in an hour, and everyone started speculating, oh, we got Bin Laden.
Right.
You know, so I mean, it's kind of par for the course. I mean, we find out after the shit.
What's the strategic advantage of announcing you're going to launch a missile strike? Why wouldn't you just do it? I mean, that's what I thought of when you mentioned Bin Laden. When we finally got him, we had no idea what was going on. They didn't go on TV or take Twitter or Facebook and say, "Oh, we're going after Bin Laden this week." Well, why wouldn't you just do it?
There isn't a strategic advantage. It comes down to the question of, do you want to initiate some kind of actual combat? Because look, if you've decided that you hate somebody enough that you want to cause physical harm to them, I'm going to go over there and beat the fuck out of that guy, right? If you call him up first, you're looking for excuses to not go. Or maybe you'll blow off enough steam and and decide to not go beat the guy's ass and risk going to jail.
Right.
But if you've made the decision that this guy needs to be beat up, then you're just going to show up and you're going to fucking do it.
Right. Fear of the act is sometimes worse than the act. So, if you can tell people that, hey, I'm going to launch these missile strikes on you and, sort of instill them with some sense of terror.
Threats are still part of diplomacy.
Yeah.
And that's the last ditch effort of diplomacy before you have to actually back up your words.
Well, I mean, forgive me for sounding like a half-ass isolationist, but why the fuck is this our problem in the first place?
Well, we've kind of made it our problem, but
yeah, we created the vacuum there.
Well, I mean, we have a bad habit of sticking our nose in everybody's business, and then when it goes to shit, it's like we go, oh, how'd that happen? Well, stop stirring the fucking pot. How about that? But I mean, like we were talking before, when we were having a pre-show meeting, I don't even really know the ins and outs and workings of it. It doesn't sound like there's any, France was sitting here and Poland was sitting here and the evil Nazis invaded. You know what I'm saying? Like they were just minding their business.
Right.
It sounds like it's what we get a lot of in history that people can't deal with the reality of. History is bad people winning wars over other bad people for the most part.
Well, if we do get into conflict over Syria, it's not going to be like World War II. It's probably going to be more like World War I, where nobody was really saw it coming or was interested in being, but found themselves having to back up their words and back up their allies. This is the word I was looking for.
Right. Well, I don't understand in this situation why isn't Europe taking the lead in this? I mean, the Syrian refugee crisis has created such a problem in Europe. They're being flooded with Syrian refugees. It's half of the problem with the gurgling fascism over there. Why aren't they taking a lead? If they could stabilize Syria, they could address their own problem with immigration, with refugees, right?
Well, right.
Why aren't they trying to stabilize this? Why is it us?
Who's the French? Do they have a president, prime minister, whatever? Macron, is that the right guy? He was saying that he's been talking to Trump a lot about this. This is very serious. They can't allow Assad to poison his own people. That's crossing a line. But
fucking Christ, that sounds like Saddam Hussein. We've heard this fucking story before.
He gassed his own people.
right. But God. Up until that line is crossed, you don't give a shit. That's what I don't get.
You're right, Rich. What's past is prologue. Ugh.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Todd. That Europe should be concerned. I mean, I know that they're concerned now. They're concerned because atrocities are happening, war crimes that they could possibly put on trial. But up until then, I guess they it's not on their radar enough. I mean, it's on their radar enough because they're being flooded with refugees.
Well, why bother? But the United States, if the big brother across the pond is willing to go in and spend his money and use his weapons to take care of the problem, why would France?
Yeah. Well, we've seen what the real solution to our own immigration problems are, and that's have a better economy in Mexico.
Yeah.
Or at least have things evened out between the two countries. Right? Yeah. That's when immigration goes down.
De-incentivized coming across the border.
Right, by having good trade policies with your neighbors and making sure that they're doing well.
Make sure they're not starving at home.
Right.
Or in the case of Syria, being blown up by some civil war.
But see, that's far too long-sighted for American sensibilities. We much rather...
Did you hear that?
I heard some Civil War talk.
Fucking Siri. This bitch can... Siri.
Oh. Siri, butt out. The people are talking.
It says, "Hey Siri, be blown up by some civil war." Listen.
Yeah, here. Do that, Siri.
Okay. I found something on the web for blown out by some civil war. Take a look.
Hold on.
Blown out.
Hey Siri, go fuck yourself.
There's no need for that.
Hey Siri, eat a dick.
I can't believe this just creeped me out, man. My phone's listening to my conversations.
Yeah.
go the fuck away. Wow.
We have a history of doing this. You look back at the 80s when Russia was over in Afghanistan, we supported basically what became the Taliban, trained them, supplied them with weapons.
Yep.
And then we end up having to clean up that mess because, well, we had to stick our fucking nose in it. It's what we had to do. But what did we do when we went over there? We went over there, trained them, gave them weapons, and then basically when Russia was like, all right, fuck it, we're out, we did nothing to help them with their infrastructure. We built no schools. The billions of dollars in money that in weapons and training and boots on the ground and CIA operatives and all that shit that we spent.
Yeah.
And we offered, I think it was something like ridiculous, like 15, 20 million to help them rebuild infrastructure.
To go back a little further, and we helped carve out a piece of their holy land for a bunch of Jews to live in, and then said, well, what problem is it of ours?
Well, also,
why should we be involved in the Middle East?
Also, I think that's interesting because the way I kind of look at Israel is that, people go, oh, well, that's the promised land for the Jews, and then it's the Holy Land for the Muslims. And I'm like, it's a piece of fucking dirt that people have been dying over for thousands of years.
Don't you guys know that the Holy Land was inside of you the whole time?
I know, right?
Where's the holy tent that Dumbo was trained on? I mean,
take 5 grams of dried mushrooms and get to know God that way, okay? Yeah. Stop fucking blowing people up in the name of your imaginary friend.
Blasphemer.
But no, absolutely, positively. It's funny, I was talking to my cousin, and she's a Seventh-day Adventist. I think that's what they're called. And I was on a roll, and I just said, yeah, well, whatever, religion you are, Seventh-day Adventurist or whatever. And she's like, I actually like that better. That sounds like, some Indiana Jones shit. Like,
religion belongs in a museum.
Exactly. I'm going to get my fedora and go have an adventure for 7 days. All right.
That's where any religion belongs at this point, in a museum.
Well,
that's its place.
Post World War II, and this isn't a very popular opinion, and in certain parts of Europe, I'm pretty sure I could be fucking prosecuted for saying this. Post World War II, the Jews really did go, the Hitler guy, he's kind of an asshole. But you know what? Let's use this to leverage ourselves back into our promised land. And that's exactly what they did. They went to the UN and said, we want to create the state of Israel.
Right.
That was post World War II. That was, we're sorry we let this happen to your people.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Here, you can have this land. And the Palestinians were like, what? Because you didn't see us? What the fuck? We weren't here?
We're already here.
And it's, once again, meddling in shit that really has nothing to do with us.
Well, you bring it forward into contemporary times. I mean, this whole problem in Syria was caused by the invasion of Iraq after 9/11. It created a vacuum, killed Hussein, who, right or wrong, he was a piece of shit, but he had control of the region.
Kept the motherfuckers in line.
Yeah, right. You take him out, you create this power vacuum, and all of a sudden, what's this Islamic State shit?
He kept the camels running on time.
Nice. And that's what's happening in Syria. It's just it's spilled over into Syria, and now we've got this, Iraq's still not in very good shape, and now we've got to clean this mess up there as well. Meddling in shit that, we don't really have any business meddling in, especially after, one of the nice things, one of the things that I will always toot my horn for is that in March of 2003, I was in New York City protesting the inevitable war before we went into Iraq. And that war had nothing to do with 9/11. He didn't do anything to us in context of the terrorist strikes or anything. And now here it is, almost 50, it is 15 years now. It's 15 years later, as of last month, or this month. And we're still cleaning up that imperialist, adventurist mess.
Oh, yeah. Remember the guy who took the sledgehammer to the statue in Iraq of do you remember that? I mean, eventually they came by with the backhoes or whatever and just yanked the thing down.
Talking about Saddam?
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. There was
and they were beating it with their shoes because it's like the ultimate form of disrespect.
Yeah, there was one man who started it all who was so anxious to see him gone that as soon as he saw Americans rolling tanks into his country, he went out there and started beating on this statue with the sledgehammer trying to take it down. and it became a whole thing. And they interviewed him recently, and he said, I wish I never did any of that shit. I want Saddam back, honestly. He's like, I don't like Saddam, but at least I knew what my country was, and I could, deal with it.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I remember going off on anarchists not too long ago on the show. Maybe it might have been last year. I don't remember. But this is the problem with anarchy, and this is the problem with people that just want to tear everything down because it just sucks. And you don't understand. I don't think half the time, most of the time, I don't think most people understand the alternatives and how bad the alternatives really are. And Iraq and now Syria is a really, really good example that you sons of bitches ought to be really careful sometimes of what you wish for and what you ask for.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take it down this road. I was going to, if I had a line of cocaine before the show, I'd probably be willing to do this. But this is kind of what I think terrifies me about the state of the country we're in now, is that, we're starting to tear at the seams and at the fabric of our own culture, our own society, our own political structure, to get to the point where we're just going to start tearing each other's throats out. We're sort of asking for that in some weird, odd degree or sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And things may be bad and things may be imperfect, but creating a state of anarchy or civil war, or however you want to look at it, isn't going to be better. It's best, I think, to try to deal with what you've got and fix it as best you can, rather than just blow it up and invite yourself into an existence inside of a warlord state.
Right.
Well, I mean, and also you have, the Iraq clusterfuck. I mean, Afghanistan, it was, by the 1st of October, we had boots on the ground after September 11th. I mean, and we've been there ever since. No, there's no timetable to get out. It's a perpetual war at this point. We're going to have to stay there until we either just abandon or.
It's Russia. It's the same thing the Russians did in the 80s in the same country.
Or we install someone that we can live with.
Well, that's why we're so afraid to just walk away from Afghanistan, because we know that Russia will instantly fill that void.
Yeah, let them. And then they'll get caught in the same quagmire they were in the 80s before we filled the quagmire role.
And then we'll send Rambo over there for Rambo 6 to fight alongside the Taliban against Russia again.
Well, let them, and then somewhere down the line, they control most of the oil in the world. We have to come to them.
I saw Rambo 3. A compound bow with an explosive tipped arrow can take out a fucking Russian helicopter. Okay?
There was one thing that I had forgotten about this, and I haven't not heard much people talk about this connection. Maybe I'm not reading or listening to the right sources, but it seemed pretty clear to me that the reason that Assad chose this time now to attack his own people with chemical weapons was because Trump had just tweeted out a week prior that we will be out of Syria very soon.
If that's the case, Assad's an idiot.
Don't you think that's right? Look, he's had them, and he has no compunction against using them on his own people, but it seems like he's restrained from doing so because he doesn't want to invite missile attacks into his country. But
or maybe he doesn't really want the U.S. out. It almost seems to me like, why wouldn't he wait? If that's the case, why wouldn't he just wait? Wait until, if we're leaving, wait until we've left. The reaction almost seems like, no, please don't go. Please don't go.
That's interesting, too.
He's provoking Trump to stay.
What?
I don't understand how he's not stupid, I wouldn't think. He said,
I don't know what the benefit, what would be the benefit for Assad or for Syria for the U.S. to stay?
I don't know. I'm trying to. I'm not that well versed, I guess, in international relations, and I'm not a Middle Eastern expert.
I hear you,
but I just it doesn't make a lot of sense to. Yeah, he says he's going to go, but all his shit's still here. All of the troops and why would he wait? Why wouldn't he wait? If that's the case, if he feels like he's been unleashed because American intervention is about to end in his country, why wouldn't he wait until the infrastructure and the weaponry is out of the country to do that? Why provoke us to stay?
That's a valid question. I hadn't thought about it from that angle. But
so let's put the tinfoil hat on for a minute.
Sure.
Is there a benefit? Is there a benefit to Assad or Russia.
Well,
for us to be
I would
there.
imagine, well, I don't know. I don't think that us pulling out of Syria would make it any less interesting to Russia.
Whose side are we on in Syria right now? We're on Assad's side, correct? He's fighting ISIS, correct? So that's public enemy number one right now, correct?
Right.
So we're helping him against ISIS. We're helping him combat his enemy in his country right now, correct?
Yeah.
So
I guess
that
so,
makes
yeah.
perfect sense. Why wouldn't you provoke the dumbass, the orange buffoon in the White House by using a chemical weapon attack to keep the big infrastructure, the big imperial infrastructure in place to keep helping you against
Right.
the enemy, even if you have to endure a missile? They're not going to shoot him. He doesn't give a shit who they blow up.
So I was half right. I mean, it was in reaction to the president's tweet, just not for the reasons that I thought.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah. I can see that. That makes the most sense to me, because if it's just taken at face value, it makes no sense. It makes no strategic sense. And he's a politician. He's a strong man, whatever. He's not stupid. I assume he's better than Donald Trump in thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead.
I would imagine so.
Who isn't? So that makes sense. He wants to keep us there, and that's the way to poke the monkey.
Trump's got Assad to deal with. He's got, they're still talking about a meeting between him and Kim Jong-il. Which one are we on? I always get them mixed up. And he's also in this trade war with China. So he's got a lot on his plate that he should be dealing with. And honestly, I find myself in the weird position of thinking, I wish he had better counsel on his other issues. He has to deal with the Stormy Daniels lawsuit and the Russia investigation. And I'm pretty confident that, the FBI is going to be able to do its job no matter what happens. So the idea that Trump is kind of left out in the wind without any real counsel for these issues, it's kind of concerning to me. I want him, what's going to happen to Trump is going to happen. I want him in a better place to deal. I mean, I can't do anything about the fact that he's chosen to take on, a trade war with China and a Twitter war with North Korea and a dick measuring contest with Syria. But that's the situation we're in. If that's the situation we're in, then can we get the president a real lawyer to give him some peace of mind so he can just deal with those issues?
Well, the FBI just raided his real lawyer. I mean,
no, didn't Michael Cohen, hadn't he already resigned before this?
I don't know. I don't remember. I know he was his lawyer. He was his primary go-to lawyer.
Right. So. And I'm not clear on the timeline if this was when the actual raid happened, but
yeah.
Because we heard about it this week. Did it happen this week, or did we just now hear about it this week?
I may be conflating this with some other event, but I almost want to say it happened in October, November.
Right. One way or another, either they had some inkling that was going to happen, or it had already happened, and I'm guessing that's why he resigned as Trump's, main lawyer. I mean, Trump has other lawyers, but this was the guy who was heading up all of it.
Yeah, who was the guy that Trump used as his lawyer in the 70s? Was that this guy's dad? Cohen. Not Cohen. Cohen was the guy's name. Really close.
Oh, shit.
Roy Cohn?
Yes. Is that him?
You know who I'm talking? Yeah, they're not related. It's Cohen and Cohen, right?
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, he
wants his Roy Cohn. He needs a Roy Cohn. And God damn it, somebody get him a goddamn Roy Cohn, because he should have proper representation. He's the fucking president.
I hate the man, but he's at the helm of the ship and he needs help.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want him to crash the ship while I'm on it.
Which, is interesting, because remember when Dave Chappelle, right after Trump was elected, he came out and he said, I hope that he does well, because ultimately we're all in this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're all riding on the same plane, and if he fucking puts it in a nosedive, we're all fucked. And he took so much heat for that. It's...
Well, because most people can't keep the two thoughts in their head. Like, I understand that there's definitely a part of me that when Trump makes, some ridiculous statement or some misstep or somebody goes after him, there's a little sparkle of joy inside of me that relishes the thought of this man being taken down. Absolutely. But his point remains that, ultimately, I don't wish for Trump to fail as bad as he could possibly fail, because
that affects
that would
all
be
of us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting, though, the psychology of that, because you sort of have indicated you have at least a twinge of remorse about having that joyous feeling at the thought that something bad is happening to Trump and his legacy and his administration. You at least can admit to feeling bad about that. There are millions of people that do not feel bad about that at all. And it was the same thing with Obama. It's the same thing with Hillary. Right. The people do not have that sense of, and that level, I guess, of self-awareness and self-insight to know, I feel that, but that's bad. People don't take that's bad step.
Well, because they're just in it for that emotional win. You know, I've picked a side, and my side's winning right now, and that's all that I care about. Not looking at things objectively and how they might directly affect your life.
Right.
Or possibly change the course of the country that you claim to love so much.
It really is an ideological civil war at this point. Just we don't have any guns yet. We desperately want the other side to not only fail, but suffer, and we will gladly suffer the pain along with it, because we just desperately need that win.
But guns may not be involved in this ideological civil war, but social media might be a bigger weapon than any gun you can get your hands on in the U.S.
Well, I don't think that the guns are far off. I've said that before, and I still firmly believe that. There may be a few years, it may be a decade, but it's coming. It has to come. It's going to get to the point where people are no longer going to be able to stomach each other's survival.
You sure that's not just Siri whispering Civil War into your ear while you sleep?
I rolled that bitch on her belly. She ain't whispering nothing into my ear, at least not out of her mouth. God, that creeped me out, man. Who the hell's talking to me?
It's like a bad acid flashback. They said this wouldn't affect me years later. What the fuck?
No, I keep hearing Chris a few weeks ago was talking about the phone listening to him. The thing just answered me.
Yeah. My
iPhone did it to me too. It's when we started talking about Syria.
Yeah, Siri. She thinks that said Siri. Syria.
It's not all about you, sweetheart. Well, it's Todd. You're right, and I keep going back to. I just remember this with Bush. And I remember this with Obama, and now it's going on with Trump. People just don't care how many enemies they make, as long as they just get to just go off on people online.
Yeah.
And I mean, it does not matter that they are creating more opposition to their quote unquote stated goal. They don't care. And now it's to the point where a lot of people that I see drop all pretense of even acting like they care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they flat out say, I just want to piss him off. Fuck him. No, I don't care.
I went through this, man, when I first got on social media. And even back before Facebook and all that, when I was doing the forums, like political forums and stuff, I tried to be as reasonable and as accommodating as I possibly could. And something happened. I would kind of lose my cool here and there because I enjoyed it. But something happened, I think, around maybe 2010, 2011, where I got so sick and tired of the same conversations, the same debates, and the same stupid replies that I gave up on trying to have any sort of dialogue with anybody. And I figured, and this is a long time ago, I'm not defending it, I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying it's what happened with me, that I took the track that I would rather, if you're not going to listen to reason, and you're not going to try to base any of your conversations and your ideas in reality, I'm going to try to shame you and make you feel so stupid that maybe you'll go and look in the mirror and, if reason isn't going to work, maybe shame will. And it didn't. It didn't do a goddamn thing. It did nothing. I was really good at it, but it did nothing other than force these other folks on the other side to dig their talons into their dirt into their ground and, sort of ballast themselves even more.
Well,
And
I think that's
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's why it was interesting with Zuckerberg in front of Congress.
Yeah.
With the whole, basically, it going, I understand you're going to have to regulate social media at some point. I've accepted that fact. I'm not even here to argue against it. And it's like, is that what it's going to fucking take?
Yes.
Is it going to take government intervention?
Yes.
Honestly,
yes.
I think that I think that he was bluffing. I think Zuckerberg was bluffing when he was talking about regulation.
I think he's more worried. He's given them that in hopes that they won't come after him and treat him like they did Microsoft back in the day, like he's a monopoly. Because when they started bringing that shit up, that motherfucker started stummering and stammering like a fucking 15-year-old that you just caught jerking off. And I'm like, oh yeah, see, that's where he's worried,
right?
And he tried to go,
okay, but
we own lots of social media platforms.
But this is why I think that it's a bluff, because I didn't hear him or anyone questioning him, and granted, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I heard some highlights and read stories about it, and I didn't hear any talk about what that regulation would look like. What would you regulate? What aspects of this business would you put under the purview of government? And to what end? To change it how? Nobody has any idea on how to regulate Facebook. So
no, that's true.
He's putting out a challenge to them, like, go ahead, regulate me, see what happens, right?
Well,
when you regulate my ability to attract advertisers and I have to charge $2.99 a month for all my users, let's see who gets voted out of office.
He already floated that option, though. Yeah, that was part of the hearings this week. That he said, yeah, we may have to charge a subscription fee to this.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that was another tactic to say, look, we can go down this road if you want to, but look, my popularity is higher than yours.
I have said this. I've said this for a few years now. And I first floated the idea probably in 2011. Shortly, it was right around the time when one of these spastic, flurries of outrage over net neutrality came up, where I said that at some point, the internet, not just Facebook, but the internet itself is going to have to be regulated. It's not going to continue to be this Wild West orgy of disconnected, random pieces of information. It has to be regulated at some point, because people, as we talked about maybe last week or the week before, people are flooded with too much stuff. And people have too little interest in deciphering fact from fiction. There has got to be a gatekeeper, or we will tear ourselves to shreds. You can't have a conversation about tribalism and social media being the problem without having a conversation about what to do about it. The only thing to do about it, because people are so disinterested in truth, fact, and simple basic reality, the only thing that can happen is you have got to have a gatekeeper put back in place, or else people will rip themselves up. They'll cannibalize each other. You've got a choice. You can put this in the hands of the politicians. Politicians are people. They're corrupt, okay? They can be bought and they can be greased and all this, but at least in theory, that corruption can be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
The problem that we're having right now with people picking and choosing their boutique news and boutique information to fit their worldview and wage war on someone who thinks differently from them, we're going to have a choice between dealing with that corruption or dealing with cannibalism. You see what I mean? And there is no alternative other than, Facebook is the subject of choice this week because Zuckerberg was in front of Congress, but it's going to go beyond that. It has got to come to a point where the children have got to be disciplined.
Yeah.
That's what we are. We are children.
The reason so many people bristle at the idea of government regulating internet or social media or anything like that is because it should be this free and open place and exchange of ideas and blah blah blah. And in reality, I mean, if it's regulated like the government regulates anything else, there's only so much they can do, right? The government regulates markets. I mean, they regulate just about everything that's sold in the U.S., and yet we still have fucking Etsy accounts and drive for Uber and not pay taxes on shit. and have
It's
all these other little mini economies that we exchange goods on that
It's an
aren't
imperfect
under
system.
Right.
Yeah,
it's never going to be perfect. And there's always going to be little nooks and crannies of the internet that you can go and hide in if you want to.
I think what scares me more than any of the regulations that might come down is the fact that you got three of us sitting here who all pretty much value individual expression and at least the idea of freedom.
Yeah.
Very highly. Yet we're all sitting here going, we got to cancel that shit because America has proven time and time again it can't handle it.
It's not America. It's people.
Well,
this isn't a cultural thing.
Well, Todd, why I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm just gonna be like the ugly American. I don't really give a fuck about the rest of the world at this point.
No, fair enough. I don't either, to be honest.
You know what I'm saying? I'm more worried about the fact that I have friends who are stockpiling weapons, and then I have friends who are like on the other side, like thinking the anarchist cookbook is gonna, help them defeat the right wingers. And I'm like, if you try half that shit in that book, you're gonna kill yourself. You realize that, right?
That's the problem, and that is the problem. That right there is the problem, because at some point, the people stockpiling the weapons and the people that are, off in the shed putting together the recipe they found in the cookbook are going to want to use this shit. We cannot handle it. We cannot handle freedom. That you can go all the way back to Tacitus with Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, this book I'm reading right now. And they're talking about the filthy mob back then, 2,000 years ago. You have got to be able to control these children. If you do not control the children will tear your house to pieces. And this is not, I am a libertarian at heart. I want freedom. I want to be able to run free in the jungle, but we can't collectively. We do not have a sense enough of personal responsibility to handle that freedom without harming ourselves. It's going to come to the point where our freedom ends at the point where it's corrosive to the rest of society.
Yeah.
Right? You're free to go up with swinging your arms around and swinging your bald fist up until it strikes somebody else in the head. Then your freedom ends. If you take that up to a macro scale, that's where we're at. You're free to think what you want, say what you want, and, consume all the information that you choose to consume until that irresponsibility and that lack of fundamental commitment to truth, fact, and rationality does damage to society. And that's where we are. And that's probably the trigger, what social media has triggered. It's gotten us past this point where we're not really able to connect to the degree that we can do that kind of damage. Now we can. So therefore, there has to be a gatekeeper put. We took it away. We fucked it up. It has to be put back in place. It has to.
Or at least the people take some control over what they want from Facebook or any social media. Because, the idea of paying for it is...
Good luck.
Well, look, there was a lady on NPR today that was talking about, I guess she looked at total Facebook subscribers and their total gross income and just did the simple math on it and said if that breaks down to somewhere in the neighborhood of like 35 cents per person per month, right? So basically saying that Facebook wouldn't lose any money if they just nixed all the advertisement and just charge 35 cents. And it won't be. It'll be like
charge a buck.
Right. Charge a buck and triple your profits and fucking stop using our data to manipulate people.
Well, yeah. I don't know, man.
Maybe it will be a competitor that actually steps in and goes, look, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. Like at some point, somebody has to. Isn't that how all businesses work?
Well, there's
McDonald's feeds you shitty fries and shitty burgers forever. And then all of a sudden Burger King says, oh, wait a minute. We're going to do something different. We're going to have real burgers and real fries. And you go, oh, okay, that's what I want. And McDonald's goes, oh, that's what they want? Oh, okay. Oh, they want organic?
Your arteries continue to clog anyway.
Right. It's all the same shit anyway. Right. Hey.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, some platform will come in and say, we're not going to advertise to you. We're not going to use your data, and we're just going to charge you $1 a month, and they're going to be filthy rich. And
there already is. There is. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's an alternative to Twitter. Basically yeah,
I'm sure there's
like it looks like Twitter. It apes a lot of what Twitter does.
Yeah.
The problem is that it's been pretty much overrun by the people to the far right who've been kicked off Twitter.
Oh, okay.
They go there, and it's like it's like the Wild West over there. But then it becomes
right because it's not an attractive option. It's an option of last resort.
Yeah, and it's the antithesis of Twitter. Whereas Twitter might crack down on white nationalist or extreme far right, alt right, whatever you want to call it. I stuck my toe in the water of this thing and was bouncing around in there for about an hour. And man, I didn't even bother to fucking sign up because I knew I was like, I'd get ripped apart instantly. I'm too far to the left for them. And the thing is that I'm not even all that far to the left, really. It's just they're so far to the right. I look like I'm way over there when I'm really just a little bit left to center.
Fucking centrist.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that wonderful how that has become? Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. That's exactly it. That's
exactly it.
That cartoon. I'm like, yep, that's exactly how it is. That's exactly how it is.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right now because just to describe for the listeners real quick, it's famous moments in history reimagined by centrists.
I'll put it up on the Facebook page.
Yeah, and so Facebook page this week. There's a guy who seems to be addressing Hitler, I guess, and he says, "I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend your to the death your right to say it." Right? That's a centrist. That's a dangerous centrist.
Because there was because we've all advocated for killing Jews based simply on their religion, right?
Right.
That's okay.
People say a lot of shit they don't do. Hitler actually backed up his words, and that was the problem.
Exactly. Yes. If I killed as many people as I killed as many people as I threatened to kill behind the wheel of a car, I would be a mass murderer on Hitler's scale.
Right.
The only way that would have been accurate is if they would have put a picture of Richard Spencer in place of Hitler.
Right.
Then you're not being hyperbolic at least.
Yeah. So the next panel is looks like the same dude holding up a sign that says compromise in between the Ku Klux Klan and probably a Black Lives Matter rally. And on the black side it says we want civil rights. On the other side it says we want to kill black people. There's an anti-war rally where the centrist is showing up with the sign that says reasonable amount of wars. Look, isn't that a reality? Like, yes, world peace is a goal that we should strive for. That's a wonderful thing. But
what is it you said Brian Eno said?
Here's where we live right now.
What is it you said Brian Eno said?
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Exactly.
Yeah. And finally, he's about to be beheaded by a guillotine. So I'm assuming he's in France. And he says, "I don't really care about politics." Now, that's the only one that stuck with me. That's the only one that rings true. But I don't see how that's being a centrist or has anything to do with the other three panels, honestly. That's where I kind of lost me.
How can you say I don't care about politics and be classified as centrist?
I don't say
if you don't care about politics, you're apolitical. Therefore, you're not in the middle of anything.
Right. So I think they kind of shat on their own point on the final panel on this one.
Right.
Plus it's shittily drawn.
Well, yeah. It's
bad art on top of it.
I really love this notion that somehow, and this idea that's being pushed, that libertarian means it's God, I hate this phrase, but it's going to be one that it's not going anywhere. It's a dog whistle term for racism.
Libertarian is
it's a way of saying I'm racist. But without saying it.
That's just stupid.
But there's so many people that buy into it.
Well, they're stupid too then.
And I'm like, do you not understand that when I can't speak for everybody that is a supporter of the Second Amendment. I can only speak for myself. And a few friends who I've had this conversation with who agree with me. When the Black Panthers armed themselves, they absolutely were within their rights to do so. I'm not scared of that. That doesn't scare me. I don't care that they may be fuck whitey, fuck the white man. That's fine. There's a lot of people running around with fucking weapons going, "Tell me when, Lord." You know what I'm saying? There's nutbags all over the place. But that part of supporting people's rights and freedom gets buried in the fucking narrative because it doesn't fit the agenda that's being pushed.
Right.
And that's what irritates me. Look, the Nation of Islam are black nationalists. They are literally the photo negative of someone like Richard Spencer. They call for exile of white people in certain neighborhoods, black-owned everything, isolationism, separate but equal.
Segregationists.
Yes, segregationists. Right. And they have every right to feel that fucking way. And if they choose to, if there's an area of the country that they can find and it's just populated by people who are like-minded, as long as they're not running people out, they have every right to do that. And they have every right to believe what they want. But that's never fucking talked about. It's, no, you want to support the Klan. You want to support the neo-Nazis. Why? Because as long as they're not inciting violence and calling for people to be killed, if they're preaching segregation, then right. What? I should go over there and put and borrow mommy's handkerchief and put it on my face and then fucking swing a fucking bike lock at them? No. Just like I don't do that with the fucking Nation of Islam. Just like I don't do that with the Hoteps, the 1% or the 5%ers, the Moors who, we're sovereign people and all this shit. We don't pay taxes and blah, 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 and all this good shit. Everybody's got all the right in the world, as long as they're not breaking the law, to believe and espouse anything they fucking want.
Certainly.
That is the message that gets lost in all this, and that's what irritates the shit out of me. And this is where it's like the left-leaning media. You can't, if you are, unless you are just brainwashed or you're being willfully obtuse, there's no way you can't see that the media definitely is slanted towards the left and definitely pushes this idea of dog whistle racism and libertarian as part of it. I mean, basically, I've seen in the last 6 months a lot of websites and Facebook pages, social media pages calling libertarians the veneer for the alt-right. You know what I'm saying?
Libertarians?
Okay. Yes, libertarians.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't understand this.
It's like, and how the libertarian is the first step down the slippery slope to being a white nationalist, alt-right, Vox Day type guy. And I'm like,
sure. And pot's a gateway drug, right?
I have got no mental space for that. I have no cognitive energy to even debate that idiocy.
I wanted to mention too, there's in this cartoon, it actually contradicts itself between these two panels. The first one being the man talking to Hitler and saying he'll defend to death his right to say what he wants. And then the man underneath that in the third panel saying reasonable amount of wars, right? You can't have that both ways. Like, you're saying that this centrist is wrong because he's accepting Hitler espousing hate, right? And that something needs to be done about that. Like what? What would you do about that? How would you overthrow a leader of another country? You've got to decide to go to war. So now you have what you consider to be a reasonable amount of wars, the ones that need to be fought. Right. So you can't have it both ways.
I think a lot of the issue that a lot of people who are saying libertarianism is a slippery slope into fascism or whatever you want to call it.
This is fascism. This cartoon is fascism.
I mean, yeah, I know. And I get into arguments with people every once in a while. I try to explain to them. I go, look, fascist tactics aren't limited to fascist.
Sure.
Just because fascists are well known to use these tactics, anybody can use the same tactics and pretty it up with a different name.
Sure. Trump uses fascist tactics. I wouldn't define him as a fascist, though.
Trump.
Oh, he's pretty damn close to it.
Well,
how do you guys? This is something that I
let me clarify. His government, he's not running a fascist government. He may have fascist ideals himself, but
He's
Not
not
ones
running
that
a fascist government thanks to checks and balances at this point.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, he hasn't completely remade, the governmental system. How do you guys define fascism? This is something that I'm being a little unfair here because it's a really murky term, and this goes all the way back to George Orwell. I think in like 1947, after the war, he was like, fascism is a term that's thrown around, and the only thing it means now is that which we find undesirable. Fascism is thrown around pretty cavalierly by a lot of people that have no idea what the fuck it even means. It has a meaning. It's a far right-wing ideology. It's an authoritarian ideology.
Uh-huh.
And it uses, deifies the military, law enforcement, militarism, nationalism. Like, the commonality between Hitler and Mussolini was restoring the glory of the past. Make America great again. It has a meaning.
I've always considered, like, the defining characteristic of fascism for me is using some sort of police force to basically control the actions and thoughts of the citizens.
How do you distinguish between authoritarianism? Using that definition, then, how do you distinguish between authoritarianism and fascism? Because that's an authoritarian tactic.
Okay.
But doesn't that go back to they're flip sides of the same coin? I mean, communism, the way it was practiced through most of the 20th century was authoritarian, totalitarian regimes. So was Mussolini's fucking Italy.
Right.
I mean, that's what I try to look at these people who are on the far sides of things. And I'm like, do you people not see that the people in the middle don't want to go too far down either of these roads? Because we've seen where it leads.
Exactly right. It's exactly right.
So we're trying to put some balance here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let me wipe up my drool off my chin here as far as the fascism definition goes, because I not only you guys, but the tens of thousands of unregimented listeners we have, I would encourage you to.
We're growing by the week.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Encourage how you define the word fascism and think about it. Sort of examine how you even if you even know what that word means. Or if you're confusing it with another idea like authoritarianism. I'm not saying you're doing that, Aaron, but I think that it's one of those words in the language that it has a really loose definition as people use it. I don't think people know what the word means half the time. When I've heard people call liberals commie fascists. The two things are diametrically opposed.
Right.
It's like calling someone a black honky.
Cracker ass Negro.
Yeah, it's the same. You sound like a fucking buffoon if you call someone a fascist commie. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You should shut up. Really, Dunning-Kruger, man. You don't know you're stupid. Right. So I would like to. Maybe this is something that the three of us maybe we should do next week. Is kind of like do a little homework assignment and come up with 3 personal definitions of fascism for next week and see how they meld together. Do it independently. Okay. Don't collaborate on this.
Sure.
Let's see what we each come up with, because I think it would be really interesting to see how they differ.
Yeah, I'm game.
Yeah. But my understanding, I go back to Orwell. I use Orwell because he actually fought fascism in Spain. He saw fascists. Okay. And he's the guy that I sort of go to with this. And, I think he's right. I think a lot of people throw that word around just as a blanket statement and a blanket term for that which I disagree with without knowing what it means.
Well, to back up just for a sec, I think one of the issues that, once again, the people who think libertarianism is a slippery slope into whatever, I think a lot of the problem is that, and this is just an observation, I don't really see like well-known, well-branded, outspoken, quote-unquote leaders on the left when it comes to their movements. Who's the de facto leader of Black Lives Matter?
Apparently some guy in Australia with a Facebook page.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I really want to get to that, but we'll work up to it. But I mean, I'm being dead serious. I mean, if I ask you, on the right, who are some of the leaders of the think tank on the right? I mean, I can. Now, I'm not not saying that these guys are good at it. I'm just saying they're well known. You have Milo Yiannopoulos, you have Gavin McInnes,
right?
You have now this
David
one cracks
Hogg.
me up. Yeah, you have
David
Jordan-
Hogg. I guess if you're asking on the left, who's the de facto leader, I would throw David Hogg in there. I suppose.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely. I agree with you that he's quickly approaching demagogue status. So
yeah,
through default, I guess he would be. But I mean, like on the right, you have academics. You have people who 5-10 years ago would be described as liberal. People like Jordan Peterson, Eric Weinstein, who, if you look at the political compass, are very much to the left on a lot of issues, but they have one or two beliefs that fall along centrist or maybe a little right of center, and so they get lumped in with their alt-right.
They say they want a secure border, and they're like, "Oh,
Yep. You hate immigrants."
Typical.
I mean, that was the infamous video of Jordan Peterson being interviewed over in by the BBC. Was, they ask a question, he'd answer, and they go, "Oh, so what you're saying is," and he goes, "No, that's what you're saying. What I said is exactly what I said, which was," and he'd repeat himself, "Oh, so what you're saying is," and it's like there's really no who do you have on the left? You have, I'll give you David Hogg. But what? A bunch of fucking people? Like, are
you looking for like avatars and figureheads of specific?
I mean, is
agendas,
Oprah a leader of the left? Is anyone in Hollywood? Is anyone on The View?
Who comes to mind is people
Rachel
like
Maddow.
Yeah, Rachel Maddow. I think you could look at her. I think Katrina Vanderhoovel, I think her name is, the woman from The Nation. She came to mind immediately when you started mentioning that. Who else is there? Bill Maher is more of a centrist now. He's not really. I don't even consider him liberal. He considers himself liberal. He's more of a libertarian to me.
Right.
Who else is there? So this is a good exercise.
Well, I mean, if you look at the Me Too movement, for a minute there, you had Rose McGowan and Ashley Judd. But I mean, I don't know if it's because they were unstable to begin with, or if what they went through made them unstable. But man, they come unraveled quickly, and social media was not friendly to them for that.
Right.
Like they did more to hurt their own cause than anybody attacking them did.
Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, I guess they're politicians. But I definitely think that Bernie Sanders he's far and away in the last couple of years. I think he's become the de facto leader, or at least symbol figure of the far left.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it because Hillary was just another, career politician.
She's irrelevant now. The only thing relevant about Hillary is her shriveled vagina. It's the shriveled vagina. That's it. It's the only reason that she is even a thing today.
The problem with I'm not disagreeing with any of the people that you mentioned, Todd, but I'm remembering examples of people on the left trying to tear him down for something that they said one time.
Well, yeah, cannibalizing.
It's like even if a leader arises,
they're not far enough to the left.
They're not going to. The people on the far left are not going to follow them.
Sounds like a group I'm a member of on Facebook. The group is literally just there to tag, and it's called "Sounds like the left is eating itself," but okay, And it's literally anytime I see some perfect example. Yeah. Was it you, Todd, who sent it to us in the group chat about? At the Gay Pride Parade, they're no longer going to have drag queens because it might offend transgendered people.
I did not see that. I wish I had. That was not me.
Okay.
This is like when you get a fortune cookie, and you're supposed to add in bed after it every time. Like this is your standard response every time somebody posts a news story to your Facebook page. That's your standard response. This looks like the left eating itself, but okay.
Well, I mean,
add that on.
I go back to you had the Pride Parade in Toronto, and Black Lives Matter came out. And marched straight through the middle of the parade and broke up the Pride Parade. The Pride Parade, by the way, that had all the permits, had Justin Trudeau there, had the blessing of the legal blessing to be there. This faceless organization who really doesn't have, if they have a leader, who the fuck is it? And why don't we know them by name?
Well, here's okay. Let me throw this at you. This just popped into my. It's an idea that I've been batting around in a different context, but maybe the reason the left doesn't have any leaders and doesn't have any sort of avatars, doesn't have that symbol figure like the right does, is maybe the left is too busy babbling. Maybe they're too busy up on their soapbox yelling rather than having enough left over to listen to anyone else, to follow anyone. Everyone on the left thinks they're their leader.
That's what I'm getting at. And when they asked the Black Lives Matter, a few spokespeople from the crowd that marched through the Pride Parade, why they did it, they said, because traditionally gay and lesbians have excluded people of color and blah, 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 and they need to recognize our struggle and this and that. And it's like,
yeah,
you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Right. Well, we like to think of like true leaders, especially, presidential leaders in this country, of being these, self-motivated, driven people who have this plan that they want to execute for the greater good of our country. And that's not how it works, really.
Oh, well,
you have to have Obama didn't just form his idea of government and then carry that throughout his career until it came true. He saw groups of people that he could, be the spearhead of.
It's a coalition building.
Right. So, and until you have coalitions like that ready to be,
we have countless numbers. It's called identity politics. So where are the people that are bringing them together? The people don't want to be brought together because they're too busy yelling and screaming from their soapboxes.
Right.
See, I've been saying for a long time now that the people on the far left are the people who like when people go, oh, the millennials, oh, they're the participation trophy generation.
Yeah.
I don't know. The older I get, I'm like, I don't see that whole generation as that, but I do see a lot of people on the far left from that generation as that.
Right.
And here's the thing. Whereas we were, at least I was, brought up to compete to win, and we look at them and they go, oh, yeah, they're just happy to get a participation trophy. No. They compete to lose, to be the biggest victim. And they fight viciously and dirty and shit on their own fucking people and people who would be allies just to get one notch higher on the victimhood totem pole. It's not that they're lazy and they don't compete. They just compete in a race to the bottom. And they love it like that. And remember we had Monique on?
Yeah.
First semester of college, she talks to me. I'm like, so how's school going? She goes, I can't believe all these... Everybody's just a victim in college. I'm like, did anybody survive anything?
Right.
Did anybody persevere over anything?
Did you see the recent controversy over Tony Robbins that came out this week?
Mr. Big Teeth? No.
So at one of his, whatever you want to call it, seminars, rallies.
Cult gatherings?
Yes. A woman stood up and challenged him on not doing enough for the Me Too movement. And, if he really cares about women, he should be using his power to further this cause. And he came right back at her and was like, I don't have this quotes in front of me, but his basic point was that, okay, yes, we're talking about men who did horrible things and probably deserve to be taken down because of that. But what is this movement doing for you as a woman? You're tearing people down. How does that lift you up? It doesn't automatically lift you up just by tearing other people down.
I think it's the first time I've ever heard him say anything that I agree with.
Ditto.
No, I'm with you because he's
a self-help douchebag.
He's kind of a kook. Yeah.
I'm going to walk on fire.
But he's right.
Hashtag fleecing the fucktards.
Well, but it's an uncomfortable question to throw out there to someone who is accusing you of not using your privilege to lift up other people who are oppressed and all this and go, well, what the fuck is it doing for you? Well, how is your life better by any of this?
It's like everybody in the country is singing the Janet Jackson chorus. What have you done for me lately?
It really is. It really is. I mean, one of the things that This isn't a sports podcast. That's Sporgy and the Pizza Man podcast, available on ChristopherMedia.net as well. But, there was a story about I know that's my one plug for the year. I had to do it because Chris wasn't here. There was a story about a junior hockey team whose bus got wiped out.
Yeah,
and half the hockey team were killed.
Canada, yes.
And I mean, like, the majority of the ones that survived are fucked for life, paralyzed. I mean, they were identifying body parts, not bodies, parts. That's how bad this accident was. And and the way those teams work in Canada, first of all, look how big Canada is. There's only 37 million people there. These kids at 14, 15, if they show promise in hockey, their family sends them to live with billet families in the towns where the teams are based.
Okay.
And
a
billet family.
That's a specific term for like
Todd, you were
hockey family.
Well, Todd, you know what a billet is. You were in the military.
Yeah. Yeah, it's where you go live with people. They do this with minor league baseball players here in the States. Yeah, you go live with a family, you play your sport, and they basically put you up and house you.
And this town was a town of 4,800 people.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this was a big thing. The whole town was built around, they support this team. I'm sure a lot of the economy, et cetera, et cetera. So for this town to take a hit like that, people started giving money. And they've raised about roughly a little bit over $7 million.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's nice and everything, but let's be honest here. I'm sure almost every one of those people would rather have their sons, teammates, friends walk through the door than have money instead.
Sure.
You wouldn't know it to go look at social media because here come the fucking vultures to pick at the bones of these dead players who, by the way, were the same people telling us that we can't criticize anyone from Florida who survived the shooting because they're children. And these people all were ranged in age from 15 to 20.
Right,
for the most part, they're children. And they come out and said it's only because of maleness and whiteness and privilege that this money's been given to these people. What about the indigenous people, the First Nation people? What about people of color? And I'm like, what? Are you fucking serious? This is how low we've gotten. We just spent over a month and a half shaming anyone who dared to say, maybe David Hogg should, I don't know, read up a little bit on the subject before he goes out there talking about it. Because he really doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You can't even say that. You have to lose your sponsors. You have to lose your job. You have to whatever. You have to be punished because you didn't go along with the groupthink. Now these exact same people are attacking not just the memory of these kids and the survivors, but the people who are trying to help them and going, you're not doing enough for people of color. You're not doing enough for indigenous people. What's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
Really? And it's never good enough. It's the left's favorite game. You can never win, and they love to play it. And this is why the amount of women I talk to these days who go, oh, don't call me a feminist. I'm kind of shocked at.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I am shocked.
Several times. I had the same reaction. I've talked to a lot of my girlfriend's friends and family members of hers, I guess, back at the Super Bowl party. We were sitting there. Some woman I had never met. She was probably in her mid-30s, and she was ashamed of the term feminism. This is why I keep coming back to this thing where I say, the Democrats are going to have a party in November. They're going to have a good midterm election, just like the Tea Party did in 2010. Stock up on those antidepressants for 2020. You're going to need them because that's the backlash that I keep talking about. It's not just men. It's not just us four. It's I think it's infecting the vein of the entire body politic.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
My grandmother, first woman in the history of State Farm to do the job she did. She would go to parts of Detroit that men refused to go to. Did it for 40 years and retired and considered herself very much a feminist. Like, she started this job. Yeah. She retired in 98, so that's 58 she started the job? Think about that. That's pre-Mad Men time. And she's in a male-dominated field doing the job and going to areas men are like, I ain't going to that fucking part of Detroit. You kidding me? I ain't dealing with fucking collision shops down there and ride down there in the middle of the fucking night by myself and do an adjustment. I'm not doing that shit. And she did. And, a few years after she retired, she said something to me. We were sitting, I was visiting with her, and she goes, it makes me sick that I fought and put up with as much shit as I did for 40 years to make headroom for women who came after me. And now these feminists take the worst traits of men, and that's everything that made me despise men is the traits that they fucking hold up as virtuous now.
Well, I saw
for themselves, not for men.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, right.
I saw a quote that actually articulated that really well. It's that equality today, the term equality, basically means sexism and racism done backwards.
Right.
And I thought, when I read that, I almost screamed to the heavens, thank you. That's exactly what's happening. They don't want equality. They want the right to act like they perceive that men have always acted. They want their revenge now. They want that position of oppression.
And see, it's very apparent. The first time I ran into this, seeing it anywhere, was, believe it or not, the very first season of The Real World in 1992. I remember Julie, the hick chick, the token Southern white chick.
Yeah, I remember.
Talking to Kevin, the Black Power writer and all this. And they got in an argument because he was talking about how her very existence oppresses him. And she has power over me. And she's going, what power do I have over you? What can I make you do? I can't even beat you up if I want to. You could literally kick my ass. What power do I have over you? And he goes, race plus privilege equals power and racism. That's why you can be racist and I can't. Because I don't have privilege and power. And it was the first time I'd ever heard someone articulate and redefine the term racism to exclude and excuse their racism.
Right.
And put it all at the feet of somebody else. Because racism to me growing up was, the very definition was, you believe that one race is inherently genetically superior, morally superior to another just by virtue of their race.
Right.
That was racism, the definition when I grew up.
It still is the definition.
There's a lot of
the definition hasn't changed regardless of how people interpret the word.
I'm just going to say,
I
appreciate your positivity on this, but I think the jury's still out. I think there's a fight going on, and it's being fought in the media. And every time you read something like dog whistle racism, problematic, privilege, toxic, insert whatever.
Yeah.
That is people trying to rewire your brain to think of racism in this new way that they've defined it. It's goalpost moving.
We have words and we have definitions. They do mean things for a reason.
Well, it's I got into a discussion with a guy online because he was like, you're a cis white male, and I said, first of all, stop using made up words. He goes, what's a made up word? I'm like, cis. It's a bullshit term that has no basis in Latin, no root in Greek, in nothing. It is literally a gender studies professor in the late 90s said, I think it's derogative for someone to refer to a homosexual as a homosexual and a straight person as a straight person or a heterosexual. So you're cis now.
What does that even mean?
Right.
It's a made up fucking word, Don.
What does it mean? What does it mean?
Oh, it means you're straight. You're straight. And you are comfortable in the gender you were assigned at birth.
Right.
Signed?
Well,
I was not assigned a penis. I was not assigned this penis. The doc come in.
If I did, I want to return. Give me the receipt. I want to return it.
This penis, I assign you this penis. I will staple it to your groinal area at this moment in time. No, that did not happen. Sorry. I was not assigned it.
The need for a term like cis comes from a need for something other than saying normal, right? If you're going to classify these people as homosexual, and that just leaves everyone else to be under the normal classification.
What's the percentage of the population that's gay again?
I don't know.
Like 4%.
Is there
4 to 7%.
Is there a billboard somewhere tallying it up?
So actually, they've done studies like this. You see it thrown. Well, 4% of the population is being oppressed. So yeah, it's out there in the conversation at some point.
Okay.
So that means 96% of the country is straight.
You'd never know it to look at pop culture.
Whatever.
If aliens landed,
I'm just
they
saying.
think we're all gay.
If 96 out of 100 people have a certain trait, that is considered normal.
It just reminds me of a meme I saw that it was making fun of the quote unquote right, or how the right thinks that there's a gay agenda out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a picture of a baby and a dog, and baby looks at the dog and says, "You know that 1 in 3 people are gay, right?" And dog looks at the baby and goes, "I'm not gay." And the baby goes, "I'm not gay either." And then they turn and they break the fourth wall and look at you, and the dog's kind of got his head tilted. It's like, kind of process of elimination here. I guess dick's on the menu for you. But
I'm sorry. I don't have a problem with saying 96%, a trait that 96% of the population, the human population shares is being normal. That doesn't mean that I'm calling gay people weird. It doesn't mean that I'm calling them defective. They're not in the norm.
See, my issue with these made up words is it's not that the terms that we used before were outdated or offensive. It's that it's the arrogance of the younger generation going, we don't want to use your dad terms for this.
Right.
What is non-binary if not androgynous?
Well, okay.
What is gender fluid if not androgynous?
I can't let you slide on the term made up words because all words are made up, right? And they're all born out of necessity to identify something. But the problem with these new terms that you're taking exception to is that they arise out of the necessity for describing something that we used to have words to describe, but we've blown up the definition of those words. That's why we're coming up with these new words.
But the very people muddying the waters and the definitions of these words are doing it so they can fist fuck their new bullshit terms into the fucking pop culture vernacular. And fuck them. There's no reason. It's not like retard versus mentally handicapped or whatever the fuck. It's not like Negro versus black or African American. There is nothing inherently wrong, oppressive, homophobic about the words homosexual and heterosexual.
It's not slander.
There's nothing offensive or inherently homophobic or racist or anything about any words, right? It's all context. It's all how they're used, and it's all who's using those words.
It's like I tried to explain to a friend of mine who had a very sheltered life. I didn't realize it until about 5 years ago how sheltered they'd actually been. They were like, Is Jew a derogatory term? I said, it all depends on how you say it.
Right.
If, like, my buddy Perchikov, he's a Jew. Now, if I'm like, he's a Jew, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, and he goes, I just thought it was all bad. And I'm like, no, it's just a shortened version of Jewish.
But you had to use it as an example, retarded versus mentally handicapped, right? But that's a perfect example of what you're now describing with cisgender versus normal.
And it's bullshit because retard.
Look, well, hold on. Retarded. There's nothing wrong with the word retarded. It has a specific meaning. We used to describe people that had
that are slow as retarded, which is the definition of the word.
Not a specific affliction, but just, it was a more general term. Of course, this is a term that originated when we didn't have a lot of science to back these things up anyway. But we have since used the word to describe anything that we just don't like. And so now it's hard to describe your phone as retarded and still have that be a viable term to apply to a person with a mental handicap. So now we need a new word. We blew out the definition of the word retarded.
Hey, Siri.
Right? I'm just picturing us humping it so hard we blew it out.
Yes. We collectively gang fucked the term retarded until it lost all of its meaning, and now it wasn't appropriate to refer to people as.
Did you just ask Siri if she's retarded?
Yeah. Hey, Siri. Are you retarded?
After all I've done for you?
See, it's inherently offensive.
See,
Yeah,
no.
to her it is.
See, this is why I don't have Siri or Alexa. Because if I wanted a bitchy, smart-ass cunt to fucking talk shit to me, I'd just get in a relationship. I mean, what the fuck?
You guys ever watch the,
wait, first of all, what, Siri? You set my alarm? Like, if you're not retarded, you're one step above, okay?
I was watching, do you guys ever watch the, those networks that have like the really old TV shows on them?
Yeah.
Like MeTV. And there's this old talk show. I forget the guy's name. I am drawing a complete blank on the guy's name, but he had a really popular talk show in the late 60s, early 70s, and he had the old Brooklyn Dodgers on there and had like 5 of them. And one of the guys was a pitcher, had a decent career, got out of baseball and got involved, and this is like 1968, okay? Got involved with the Special Olympics, like right at the beginning of it. And they were coming on to actually start to sort of promote this idea of the Special Olympics and he got involved with it because his son was born, in his words, retarded. He used the word retarded on this television show from 1968 probably 10 times in describing the kids that he was trying to advocate for.
Right.
And I sat here and I'm watching this and it made me cringe a little bit because I didn't want to cringe, but it's like the term has been sort of subconsciously demonized. When 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't. It was just a word to describe the mentally handicapped. George Carlin has a great bit he did, I think, in the early 90s about euphemisms. It's like shell shock has turned into post-traumatic stress disorder. It takes the meaning and the emotion out of the words and sort of sanitizes it.
Seek and destroy is now sweep and clear.
Yeah. Right.
Friendly fire is blue on blue contact. Doesn't it sound so much better, blue on blue contact?
It's not toilet paper. It's bathroom tissue.
No, it's wadded up dead fucking trees I'm stuffing in my ass, okay? That's what...
Yeah. But just to hear the guy, it was more direct, raw language. It meant something. The words had meaning.
Well, and look, it's okay. I honestly don't think in my entire life, maybe when I was a kid and I'm just not remembering it, that I ever ran into anyone who had any type of, mental incapacity, like legit, and said, "You're a fucking retard."
I never have done that in my life. Why would you?
Right.
But I can't say it when, like, if I was 5 and I didn't, the kid might have had Asperger's or something. I've been like fucking retard. I didn't know, but never with the intent. It's the same. No. It's the same way with faggot. Like, people are like, "Oh, you still use that word?" I'm like, am I talking about homosexual? Am I talking about homosexual? No. Okay. Can we agree that words have more than one meaning? Yeah.
I refuse to give up the word fag. I refuse. It's a beautiful word. It's a good
and versatile word. Yeah.
It is. It's a great word to throw at your buddies, to have some fun with your pals.
I have never used it in actual hate.
Neither have I.
I did tell Corey. I was like, Corey asked me one time, he goes, "Do you ever wish you were gay?" And I'm like, one time I worked with a guy who was an obnoxious over the top gay guy. And I wish I was gay for 5 seconds so I could go, "Faggot, would you shut your fucking mouth?" And then I'd be like, boom, I'm straight again. Okay. Sorry, right. Had to come out, and he started laughing. He goes, "See, but that's what I'm saying. You don't use that word." Cause Corey, growing up, if he was called a fag, it really pissed him off.
Right.
Now, when I say it...
If you can prove in court that you have at least 3 gay friends, you can get a special license to use the term.
No, I agree. I like Doug Stanhope's answer. He's like, look, he goes, I will be using the word faggot tonight. And he said this in New York in 2007. He goes, "I'll be using the word faggot tonight. And if any gay person has a problem with it, come up to me after the show and I'll suck your dick. I won't be wicked into it. I won't make eye contact. I'll be like, ew, ew. But just to prove to you I'm not homophobic, I will suck your dick, but the trade-off is I get to keep using the word faggot." And he's like, "I've said this for fucking 10 years.
It's not that important to me.
And I've never had anyone take me up on my offer. So I guess I'm okay in the gay community."
I will give up the word faggot when gay people give up the word breeder.
Honestly, we were, Corey and I, because if everything goes well, we'll be starting a new show here this weekend. And I was like, "So what are you going to use as a derogatory term for straight people? Breeder? And he goes, oh my God, you are old. No one calls you breeders anymore.
Yeah.
They just call you sis. And I'm like, see, you just told me yourself. It's a pejorative term. You use it as a slur.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, of course. And I'm like, well, so what am I, what are we going to say? Like, if I say something like, that chick had a fat ass, you're going to be like, yo, miss me with that breeder shit, man. I mean, and he goes, I don't know, maybe. I might have to come up with a different term. I'm like, okay, I don't have a problem with it. I don't care. It's just like, I had friends growing up, and we would use all types of horrible fucking slurs and shit towards each other, fucking with each other, but no one said it in anger. No one said it meaning it. I mean, I take a beating when I get together with my friends about my Irish heritage, because they're like, oh, here comes that drunk fucking plastic patty. Yeah. How many times you been to Ireland there? And I'm like, oh, here we go. All right. I got the half Negro, half Indian making fun of me. Really? Why don't you go somewhere, get drunk, and abandon your children? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just what we do. We just fuck with each other.
Right.
And no one takes offense to it. Now, if you're an outsider and you walked in, you'd think you walked into a hate rally. You're like, these people are going to kill each other. But once again, it's not for them. And on top of that, Bill Hicks said something years ago that I heard him say before I knew he was Bill Hicks, and it was before he died. He said, well, yeah. But, I really didn't, I knew of him, but I didn't realize his body of work.
You heard this before he died?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize his body of work and appreciate it until I saw It's Just a Ride BBC special about his life.
Right.
And I think that was like 6 months after he died, but whatever. He said something, and he goes, if I say something and you get offended, that's your problem.
Right.
That's not my problem. My problem is not to walk around making sure I don't offend people. I'm offended every single day by war, by poverty, by the atrocities committed in the name of God, etc., etc. No one apologizes to me for it. No one even attempts to make amends for it. So if you're expecting my sympathy, you ain't going to find it. I'm paraphrasing, but I mean, and I was like, exactly. It's not our job as people to walk around going, oh my God, did I offend somebody? But when you have a whole generation of people now going, we're going to reject all these terms that there is nothing wrong with, and we're going to replace them with terms that we've come up with simply because we insist we have to come up with our own terms for this. And if you use the old terms, you're homophobic, you're sexist, or whatever. No, that's where my problem is. You want to use the terms? Use them. I'm just going to roll my eyes. But when you start labeling me as something because I refuse to play your game,
right?
Fuck you.
Can I play devil's advocate on here?
Chris isn't here, so someone's going to do it.
Well, right, but
hopefully better.
What do you? I mean, you use words to convey certain meaning, right? Now, if a meaning of a certain word maybe hasn't changed in your mind, but if it has in the person that you're talking to, well, then you're not communicating effectively. You're being misunderstood, and you're being misunderstood as possibly a racist or a bigot of some sort.
If I had a friend who said to me, Rich, I'm gay. To be honest with you, it bothers me when you use the word faggot. I know you're not just talking to me. I know you're not talking about a gay person.
Right.
But it bothers me because I know there's other people that are going to hear you say it, not understand the context you're using it in, and think it's giving them a pass to say it.
Right.
It's just like my friends that I was close to growing up that were black. We throw the term nigga around all the time, but when we got into around people we didn't know, we didn't do it because inevitably someone would be like, what'd that white boy say?
Yeah.
Oh, you thinking you a little too familiar, huh? And it's like, my boy would have to be like, you don't understand. That's how we talk to each other. It ain't got nothing to do with you. He ain't calling you one, so don't worry about it. So it's just an unspoken rule. If I had a friend that asked me, would you not use the term around me? I'd do my best. But if I'm pissed off and in the middle of a rant, it might pop out. It's been known to. And I'm like, oh shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I've tried to replace it with cocksucker, but then someone was like, that's just as offensive. I'm like, why? Why?
How do you square this with the conversations we've had about online interaction, though? Bill Hicks was a world-class comedian. He was an observer. He could write. He was a performer, legendary performer. He went on stage with prepared material and put forth rants and observations things like that. So I can understand him saying, in the context of being on stage at a performance, when someone has come into the auditorium to hear what he has to say, if I offend you, that's your problem. I get that. How do you square that with what we've talked about as far as online interaction?
What are they? I swear I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm asking for clarification. Mm-hmm. If they're offended by an attempt I make at making a joke because they don't find it funny, that's their problem. If they're offended because I say I'm pro-choice and they're pro-birth, that's their problem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go looking to offend people. I'm not going to barge into a fucking comment section and immediately apply a scorched earth policy to everyone who disagrees with me and try to piss off as many people. I did the trolling thing in like 2000, 2001, and I did the fuck out of it. And then I started realizing that there's human beings on the other end of this fucking screen. And it just stopped being fun. I don't know if I grew up or I just grew out of it. It stopped being fun. But there's a lot of people who are stuck in that trolling stage and they're never getting out of it. I mean, I love to go to 4chan because it's the Wild West of the internet, but that's a whole forum full of people stuck in the troll mentality.
Yeah.
And they are looking to offend people. The difference is I'm not looking to offend you. If you're offended, that's your problem. If I'm looking, it's like when people go, are you mad at me? Believe me, if I'm mad, you won't have to ask. You will know. If I'm trying to offend you, you won't have to go, are you trying to offend me? No, I will. You will know. That's how but at the same time, what do? And this goes back to what I said a few episodes ago, Todd. I don't engage with people in those fucking debates when I see that it's going to end in a disagreement and we're not going to disagree agreeably whatsoever. And it's going to be libtard, snowflake, whatever the fuck, Trump-tard. So that's how I reconcile my view of that online. Does that make any sense?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, I got to ask you, Aaron, what do you do online? Because I'm never on Twitter. Do you ever comment on shit and
No.
You just lurk?
I never see throw anything up on Twitter. I've seen him share a couple of things and like something here and there. That's it.
Yep. It happens.
Gotcha.
Every once in a while, I'll just put up a picture of my cat with no caption. Just here, you like cats, right?
It's the internet. Of course you like cats. Here's a cat.
Right.
It's a simple way to get likes. Well, no, and I don't know. I've actually debated.
No, I guess you're right though. I've given up on trying to engage.
Exactly.
In any respect. And when I first really started getting into Twitter in earnest, it was almost impossible to avoid it because there was just ridiculous shit not being challenged. And somebody's got to step in here and challenge it. And then I pretty quickly learned the error of my ways after, each one of these interactions was completely unsatisfying.
Well, I think
there was no reward there. And I think people get their reward online from, making their own personal scores of I really got one over on that guy. And they get this, little endorphin boost in their brain.
Especially the more people click like on it. And
I'm lacking that. I enjoy a good discussion and even a good argument, but it's not like either of those are going to happen on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else.
I think I've just grown weary of call out culture. And the reason I have is because I've started to see what call out culture really is. It's not about calling out somebody and going, hey man, have you really put any thought behind what you just said and how that might come across to somebody else? Mm-hmm. It's not about enlightenment. It's about a narcissistic need to shame somebody and to inflict punishment on them, and then get everyone else to point at him and go, look at this idiot over here, look at this heretic, look at this, whatever the fuck. And, my brother's a master at it. Oh my God, he loves calling people out on the internet. And I could just see him sitting there, and every time someone likes one of his call outs, it just validates it more and more. I'm doing the right thing here.
Right.
It's the Joan of Arc thing. I'm doing God's work because God told me to. Except for you take God out of it, and I'm doing my narcissistic, self-centered work but you've convinced yourself that you're somehow doing better you're bettering society when all you're doing is being the kid that would get his ass beat for snitching on the playground when we were in fucking grade school.
Right. And I don't see it at, like, a lot of people look at social media like if you're on there, it's fair game. Whatever you post, if you post something I don't agree with, you're going to hear from me. And I think you need to dig a little bit deeper, and that takes a little more work than most people are willing to put into. But, it's almost like there's two different types of profiles, right? There's plenty of people on Twitter spouting their opinions on stuff, but let's face it, probably 99% of that shit is just random shit that popped into your brain, right? It's not your ethos. This isn't part of your manifesto that you're putting on Twitter. You saw something on TV that made you mad and you reacted to it and you put it up on Twitter. Now there's other accounts where they have like a purpose, a drive, an issue, right? I'd say freely, openly engage those people. Absolutely. They want to make that their stance, their hill to die on. Well, let's challenge that. But, the person who sees a shooting on TV and says, gosh, that could be my kid, and tweets out, we should ban all guns from this country. Well, yeah, okay, that's a ridiculous statement. It's a reactionary statement. It's a fantasy that will never happen. But unless your whole page is all about banning guns in America, it's not even going to occur to me to challenge that. That's just a tweet, right?
Well,
it's just a reaction to one thing. It's just that person might not even believe that same thing tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. I've actually had friends.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying this critically either. That's part of the reason why there's so many. I've just given up on trying to engage on Twitter because, yes, I follow a lot of accounts that tweet out stuff that I do not agree with. And there's plenty of times where I've typed out a tweet and then just hit erase. Like, yeah. Okay, I got that out of my system. Let's not go down this road.
I've done that on Facebook more times than I care to count.
That's remember John Oliver set up the website, Scream It Into the Void, where you could just type anything and hit enter and you'd go, like, okay, type what you're going to type in Facebook and Twitter there first. If it still makes sense to post.
Yeah, it's the online equivalent of just yelling into your pillow.
Exactly. Well, and I really do want to get into this because I think it's very interesting and it touches on a few things we covered, which is this. Todd, is it safe to say that this Black Lives Matter page was a bogus fake account?
Yeah.
But the one that was that a CNN story about it, about how the most popular, because there's more than one Black Lives Matter
by far the most popular.
Yes, the absolute most powerful. The one that raised the most money,
yeah,
that supposedly went to I don't know where people think their money is going when they donate to Black Lives Matter, but
they were selling,
but it was going to a guy in fucking Australia.
Yeah, they were supposed to be raising money for organizations or something down that line, and then the money was rewired into an Australian bank account instead of going to these organizations. I think that's what I read.
Now, my question is, did they have the little check mark? Were they verified?
Oh, this is a Facebook account.
Yeah. Well, Facebook, if you're a celebrity or if you're like a nonprofit organization like the Red Cross or something, they'll have some version of that you've been verified.
Oh, okay.
Is Black Lives Matter a nonprofit?
I have no idea. That goes back to what I was talking about.
I'd like to know that, actually.
It's like it's a very decentralized, leaderless, rudderless movement.
Right.
That's just a thought thrown out into the ether.
Right.
And something to chant when you're pissed off.
That's why I'm baffled by the idea that people donate to Black Lives Matter and share stories about how you shouldn't donate to the Red Cross because you don't know where your money's going.
The thought I had on this was that it goes back to that podcast that I did in 2004 where people are I love the fleecing the fucktards hashtag I came up with a number of years ago, because there are people, really smart, savvy people, that know how to exploit all of this and make money on it. You can find the Never Again people, you can find the Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, and there's going to be some guy out there who's smarter than the three of us combined, who's going to figure out how to exploit that and how to make a dollar on it, even if they don't believe a morsel of what's coming out of the hashtag mouths. There are going to be people that will exploit it. They will play you against this. They'll put stuff up on this page to just get you incited, and they'll have clever little ways for you to financially sort of purge yourself and get your rage out, because you're going to send a few dollars here and you're going to fight the evil that's in the world. And it reminds me of this collusion thing. It reminds me of everything that went on prior to the election with Facebook. How people will go on and they'll put like the antithesis movements coming from the same people. Like you'll have, I'm struggling to remember exactly what it was, but like you'll have a far left-leaning page here to gather the Green Tea Partyists together, and then you'll have a far right page to gather all of the white supremacists together, and you're playing both sides of the coin, and the funds and the profits are going to the same bank account.
Oh, absolutely. It's like an arms dealer who sells to both sides of the war.
But it's like it's actually what Russia did during the election.
Yep.
It's just that their pro-Trump propaganda got a lot more traction.
Yeah, but they also put the anti-Trump stuff out there.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if the thing that I go back to every time I have this discussion with anybody is if Russia set out not to influence but just disrupt our faith in the system and disrupt the system itself, it's been a fucking smashing success.
That's been stated.
Absolutely.
That's been stated as the goal. That's I think somebody in Facebook and maybe somebody in the intelligence community said they didn't set out to elect Trump necessarily. They wanted to sow division that was ripe to be sown. They want to see it's the divide and conquer thing. If you can split this country in half, it weakens itself.
And this is where, I mean, I really don't want to like go real deep down this rabbit hole because I could be there for a while, and I get a feeling that you could as well too, Todd. But this is where this Marxist postmodern school of thought gains traction. It turns into identity politics. It's been pushed in universities for since the late 60s. I mean, and that's being polite about it. You know, this everything is connected, and it's more important what group you're a part of than what the person you are. That's where your value comes from.
It's where your identity comes from. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and that just, I go back to, shit. I can't remember if it was Khrushchev or not. But, you know, when he infamously said at the UN, we'll take down America and we won't fire one shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you go and you look at like what happened in the late 80s, early 90s in Russia, how did the quote unquote Soviet Union, what was the main ways it came down? We started exporting our culture to their kids. Mm-hmm. Hey, go see Pantera and Metallica, kids. You know, go
here, have some
blue jeans. Exactly. Yeah. You know, and Russia's just now going, well, turnabout's fair play, so we're just going to take this school of thought that was already permeating, and we're just going to run with it. And online is the perfect way to spread it. And you're absolutely right about playing both sides against the middle. I used to work for a screen printing place. Anytime something topical and controversial happened, we'd instantly come up with at least two versions of a shirt, one supporting it, one attacking it. Yeah. And we'd sell them both.
Oh, right. It's like
pure capitalist, raw capitalism unchecked. We did not give a fuck about morals or political stance.
Right. If you're at some championship sports game of some sort, let's say Super Bowl, you come out of the stadium and immediately there's guys selling shirts celebrating the winning team. And what's your thought? Like, oh, that person must really love that team, and they had so much faith and confidence that they knew that they were going to win, that they had all these. No, he's got just as many of the others Right. Other shirts for the other losing team that are going to be donated to Africa.
I was going to say, yeah.
They do it every year at the World Series. You go into the winning locker room at the World Series, and it says Houston Astros 2017 World Champions. You think they didn't have the other ones for the Dodgers?
Exactly.
Exactly.
In fact,
They have an instant printing press right out there in the concourse just to print all these up in the ninth inning.
Right. So
one of the funniest stories about that, real quick, was the '86 Mets and the Red Sox. They were so sure the Red Sox were going to win, they started taping off the lockers. So when they did the champagne celebration, and they had world champions and shit, and then the Red Sox blew it, and they were like, "Tear it all down, real quick! Get it out of here! Get it out of here!"
Yeah, that's a good. It is a funny. So there's a lot more to that story. I can't remember the details of it, but it's like I think the Red Sox came in or something. There were remnants of the Red Sox World Series champions.
Yeah, I remember Bob Costas
locker room or something. Yeah,
it's gotta hurt.
I remember Bob Costas telling the story, and he was like, "They were not happy," and I'm like, "That's probably the understatement of the year for you, Costas."
Yeah, blame
you think? But no, that's something I try to, when I talk to people, I'm like, are you aware that most of what you read and see online, especially via social media, is someone trying to get a rise out of you? They're not trying to enlighten you. They're not trying to bring knowledge to you that you didn't have before. They're trying to piss you off enough to get you to do something.
Well, they're trying to generate clicks. They're trying to generate shares because all this stuff comes back to a website. It generates traffic, and that's how they make their money. So if they can piss you off or make you or post something you passionately agree with, just so you'll click the share button, just so you'll generate some more traffic to their website, it's going to make them money. It's pure blatant capitalism, just like you said with the hats, man. It's the same idea. It's what I was talking about last week with the media. You have to give people a product.
Right.
And if you give them a product that they're going to do something with, engage with, move it around, then you're going to make money. And that's the bottom line. As far as, the media companies go, what's the bottom line with Russia, though? What's the end game? And that's to basically sow social division and weaken the country.
Well, yeah, because if we're at each other's throats, then
we're divide and conquer.
Exactly, and this isn't. God,
it's not a rocket science.
I understand that I get off my lawn, whatever. I'm an old guy and blah blah blah. But I really don't remember as many people in my generation I grew up with acting like, oh, this divide and conquer shit, this has never happened before. This is something that's exclusive to our generation. No, bread and circuses. Have you never fucking read a history book once, ever? Have you never?
We did it in Latin America all the time.
Exactly. And that's why when younger people are like, oh, we're too savvy to fall for this. You have fucking swallowed the hook, line, and sinker. You're kidding me, right?
They know. I've said this. I've said it 100 times in my own show that they know us better than we know ourselves. Madison Avenue knows us better than we know ourselves. The politicians, even our own politicians, know us better than we know ourselves. The media company knows us better than we know ourselves. And terrifyingly, Vladimir Putin and his propaganda machine over there in Russia knows us better than we know ourselves. And we're so fucking oblivious, so self-absorbed, and so full of ourselves that we don't see it. That we refuse to understand that we're being played. That we refuse to look each other in the eye and say, they're fucking with us. You realize that, right? Sorry, brother. And it's like the internet has... I've got this is another idea I've got sort of forming in my head, so bear with me if I stutter and stammer, but it's like, I call it the kraken of the id. It's released the id from its cage. And that's all that you see now. You have the ideological sort of identification that where you get your identity and your sense of purpose and your sense of self by what political party's t-shirt you're wearing. And if you're not wearing my party's t-shirt, you're the enemy now. And that people do not see how they're being exploited that way. And the effects of it, the divisiveness and where it's going to lead.
Well, I mean,
if you want to poison someone, you don't just feed them whatever. You're going to make their favorite dish.
Feed them what they want. Exactly.
Yeah. You're going to feed them what you know they're going to eat.
Well, I mean, just go back and look at.
You can even ask them first; they'll tell you.
Just go back and look at the start.
Oh man, don't poison my pizza, man. I'll eat the fuck out of that shit.
The Pizza Man podcast, by the way, on the ChristopherMedia.net.
Freddie the Pizza Guy, formerly of 105.1. But anyways, if you go back to the beginning and you look at the very beginning of something like Black Lives Matter, you know, let's just forget the whole Michael Brown shit for a second.
Okay.
And just look at what they were saying. And look at the reaction that it caused. It caused a bunch of reactionaries to create Blue Lives Matter pages.
Yep.
All Lives Matter. White Lives Matter.
Yes.
Gay Lives Matter. And so, and I had more than a few friends who fell into fuck them. Like Black lives are the only ones that matter. And I said, let me ask you a question. If there was a species that their habitat was threatened, and we went, let's go save this species. Does that mean fuck every other species?
Right. Save the whales, fuck all the other animals?
Fuck the dolphins.
Fuck the guppies. Fuck those guppies.
You know? Yeah. I'm like, why is, let's save the whales. Why does it equal fuck the dolphins in your mind?
Right.
And I said, now, if you want to tackle the factual inaccuracy of the narrative that they're putting out there, that black people are predominantly killed by cops more than anybody else. No, it's really poor people.
Yeah.
And who come out and said it first, at least that I saw? Charlie LaDuff. And here's the thing. Charlie LaDuff's like a quarter black, so no one can fuck with him. He could say it. And you know what? He was totally ignored. It was totally glossed over. It was not picked up in any mainstream media. And this is when he had his nationally televised American show. Mm-hmm. He went right on national television and said it and backed it up with facts. And everyone just went, that's nice. Anyways, yeah, these cops, it's the Wild West up here on black folks, man. Yeah. I mean,
if Charlie LaDuff came out 100% for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Oh, they'd have put him on his shoulders and carried him off the field like he was fucking Bo Schembechler.
100%.
Absolutely. He'd have been a fucking, that's what I'm saying. Where is the figurehead for this movement? So is it really a movement, or is it more of a thought exercise? It's just something, like I said, to throw out there when you get pissed off and you're protesting.
Something to get
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Something to get the mob to raise its pitchforks and scream.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen enough videos of the Black Lives Matter protest where they get in the middle of the street, the highways or whatever, and they block people.
Right.
And they start, the people that, sorry, I agree with Bill Hicks on this. I saw what happened to Reginald Denny. Step on the gas.
On the gas.
Problem solved. Yeah. So, especially if they're beating on my car trying to get at me. I'm not coming to a stop.
That was fantastic.
I'm going over top of you.
Yeah. And then that bit, anybody ever think what I did? Hit the gas, man. And that's exactly what I thought every time I saw that video starting in 1990. Why didn't he just hit the gas?
But
he's in a big truck.
I just watched a video today that someone posted, and it was, I don't know why everybody was on bicycles.
Okay.
But they were blocking traffic, and I'm going to say it was like 85% black. And I heard some Black Lives Matter chant. So it's probably a protest over some sort of shooting or police, whatever. And they were literally hopping off their bikes, grabbing their bikes, and hitting a cop car that was in the middle of an intersection. And the cop just started driving in a circle with his siren on, trying to get him out of the middle of the intersection.
Yeah.
And some guy was coming, and he stopped. And half the crowd looked at this guy and started attacking his car. And he stomped on the gas and sent one guy about 5 feet through the air. And the same people who were literally 10 seconds before beating on the cop car, fuck you pig, die pig, help, help, why aren't you going after him? He just ran one of us over. And it's like, you're like those idiots who have a don't tread on me sticker right above a Blue Lives Matter sticker.
The synapses.
Pick one, motherfucker.
They're not firing. The synapses aren't firing at that point.
I mean, it is rudderless. Yeah. And that is where that's why
it's like when my son tells me that my daughter was beating on him. Like, you're not telling me everything that happened up until then.
What happened before that?
Right.
I highly doubt that my daughter just stood up and was like,
just kicked your door down. It was like, get the fuck off that computer. I'm beating your ass today.
the beatings will commence until morale improves. You know, it's just like, no, I highly doubt that.
I have no optimism that this is ever going to happen, but I hope I live long enough that some sort of report or book is written on the 2016 election and maybe the 5 years prior to that, and the disinformation campaign that came from the Soviet Union, because I'd love to see, I don't know if it's the KGB now or whatever it is, but the intelligence agency, the Russian intelligence agency, I'd love to see the psychological evaluation that they have on us as a collective.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see how they thought and planned to exploit us. I would love to see that in print.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm with you.
Wonderful.
I'm with you, but I can't help but think this week we watched Congress browbeat Zuckerberg for spying on his clients.
Right.
The same Congress that passed.
Right.
Another
You know what I'm saying?
another chance to use the Spider-Man meme with the two Spider-Men pointing at each other.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you realize that this is what you guys did, right?
Yeah.
Don't you remember the Patriot Act? Remember all that shit? Remember Edward Snowden? Remember WikiLeaks? Come on now.
But
Julian Assange?
We did it for the people.
Right. The closed door session was where they asked him for tips.
Right. Yeah.
How does he do it?
Well, you know, and I because you'd brought it up and I'd forgotten about it, but I think it's very interesting. Oh shit. Brain fart. Speaker of the House who's stepping down.
Paul Ryan.
Thank you. Todd, you said he's what, 48?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, he's around there.
Because it was about 20 years ago that I remember him entering the national stage. The awareness of him reaching the national stage. That's a short fucking career in politics.
48. Well, he's retiring.
He's he's retiring from the Congress.
Yeah,
he said he might go
re-election.
He might go back home and he might do something politically in Wisconsin. I think he said, right?
He's going to go back and run for governor and then president. I mean,
you think that's what he's going to do, honestly?
The reason, yeah, absolutely. The reason he's stepping down now is because he either thinks that his seat isn't safe enough and he's going to take a loss and that'll be harder to come back from, or either that or his party will lose enough seats, and he's certainly one of the leaders of that party, that he's going to be seen as responsible for the big blue wave that is expected.
But what's interesting is that he didn't want Speaker of the House. He was really the only person in the Republican Party who could get enough votes from the party that was being divided by the Trump, the new Trumpians or whatever you want to call them.
Well,
and so he just kind of like, all right, okay. And he's been at odds with Trump before. I mean, once Trump was elected, he half-heartedly did I support our president, blah, blah. I mean, I can almost see him sitting there doing it with rolling his eyes.
Remember the pre-election comment from Paul Ryan about Trump? Oh, I think he's paid by the Russians.
Oh, yeah. and when the grab her by the pussy thing come out, he called him out. He called him out on that. He called him out on, he goes, how the fuck are you going to say, well, he didn't say how the fuck. I'm obviously heavily paraphrasing, but he's basically like, how the fuck are you going to sit here and say, there's very good people on both sides when one side is self-declared white supremacist. Mm-hmm. Come on now.
You know what kills me about Paul Ryan is that he's sort of like, you talk about goalpost moving. This is the guy who was spearheading the Tea Party movement in 2010. Remember?
Yeah.
He was one of the young guns or whatever that came in and was swept into office in 2010 with the Tea Party. This guy's not
tapped to Romney's running mate.
Yeah, he is not some sort of moderate centrist. He seems that way because of Trump and because how fucked up everything is now. But he's
right.
He is not the bland vanilla alternative. He's still Mr. Tea Party guy. He has nothing's changed with him. Nothing's changed at all.
He's a Republican he's like a Bush era Republican, which is now a centrist.
Paul Ryan? No. He's far further to the left than any Bush era Republican was.
You think?
Oh, yeah. Have you forgotten 2010? He's one of the guys that was spearheading shutting the government down in 2010. Remember that? He was right at the forefront of
that. I'll grant you that.
Yeah, he seems that way now because of the decay of the rhetoric in the last 8 years. But yeah, he's still, Mr. Freedom Caucus / Tea Party guy. And now he's sort of being, like you said, I mean, it sounds like at least the tone of what I'm hearing you guys say is that he seems like the sensible alternative now. But that's just because it's like the frog in the pot. Because Trump's turned the burner up to 9 now, and all of a sudden the Tea Party seems like, it's almost like it's like George Bush. We go back 10 years, and George Bush seemed like an atrocity, an American atrocity, right? But now, God, I'd love to have George Bush. No, it's because it's all relative. Because everything's been just thrown in the air. That's what bothers me about this. Is the normal has been moved.
Well, I'm no defender of Paul Ryan. I think I always saw his involvement with the Tea Party as opportunistic. He's always had an idea of how the government should run and how we should budget everything, and this was a means to an end for him. This was a party that he could jump in front of and eventually get his Paul Ryan budget passed.
Yeah,
which we have seen, and we now know that it's actually destroyed the budget and put us further into debt. But he gets to, say mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And, take the opportunity to wave from his own personal aircraft carrier.
How do you figure he's going to run?
And spend more time with his family.
How do you figure he's going to run? You think he's going to run in 2024 then? You think he's thinking 6 years ahead of time? He wants to go be governor for 6 years and then run? I mean, he's young
I would
enough.
imagine so. Yeah. I could totally picture that.
Yeah, I could too.
I don't believe that he's done with government by any means.
He's just getting out. He's jumping off the train before it hits the bridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you brought up, his involvement in 2010 with the Tea Party, and there's a lot of people who entertain the school of thought that the Tea Party gave birth to the alt-right, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember the first time we started discussing the alt-right, it was right after we came back.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, what the fuck is the alt-right? They're a bunch of people who post like Pepe memes.
Yeah.
And somehow Pepe became a racist symbol. I'm like, it's just a frog that anybody can draw anything on that frog. I could draw him to where he's a hippie. I could draw him to where he's a Nazi. Mm-hmm. Whatever. It's just nonsense. I'm like, this is what people are upset about. And I remember a conversation you and I specifically had. I think it was one of the shows that was just you and I. Chris wasn't there. And, I was like, we basically were like, is there anything about the alt-right that, we're like, okay, I can kind of get down with that. And the one thing I come up with is they don't seem to be led around by the religious right. They do not give a fuck about the Christian right in this country.
Yeah.
And to me, that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying that I support them because of that, or I'm an alt-right person, but, even Hitler loved his dogs. I mean, it's like...
Blondie was a good-looking German Shepherd, though. Come on.
But I mean,
Kendrick, obviously.
But I mean, now it's just like I look at the Tea Party, and you're absolutely right, because I'm sitting here. We were talking about this, like, man, if you'd have told me in 2016, we said this on election night, that I'd be like sitting here opining about and longing for the days of Bush and Cheney.
Yeah.
Versus looking at Trump Pence in January 21st, 2017 and going, oh God, can the world end before then?
Right.
I mean, now I look at the Tea Party and I'm like, those pretty much benign old people walking around with stupid fucking tea bags hanging off their hats.
Well, I don't long for the days of unnecessary wars. But if we have to have unnecessary wars, I would like them fought by somebody who at least seems to know what they're doing.
That doesn't say we have fighter planes that don't exist on anything but Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Or at least surrounds himself with people that know what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Well,
I still say the one person Trump doesn't fuck with is Mad Dog. He doesn't tweet about him. He doesn't poke the bear.
Well,
he lets the warrior monk just, I hired you to do this job, or I appointed you to do this job. Go do this job. I'm going to let you do it. And it's just hands off.
Yeah.
And that whether you agree with Mad Dog or not, I'm talking about Mattis, former General Mattis, Marine Corps General Mattis. Whether you agree with him or not, Trump's at least smart enough to not start to try to stick his fingers into that particular end of the pool. Because the military, they don't take kindly to draft dodgers. They don't take kindly to, pogues, shit like that. Persons other than grunts getting their fucking.
Right, but what are they going to do about it? That draft dodger's the commander in chief now.
Right.
What are they going to do? You're gonna have a military Roman style coup.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's not like
no, but what I'm saying is he's not poking the bear and he's not pissing off the military. And by leaving them alone, he'll probably continue to have their support. Versus if he started trying to act like he's some sort of if he started being a fucking like a chicken hawk, he would probably lose support. I'm not saying that the other side would gain support from the military. You would just see military people disengage. Like I saw a lot of that with Bush. They're like, what the fuck did he do? And he fucking National Guard and he was a male cheerleader. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So instead of voting for Gore or Kerry, most former military people I knew in 2000 wanted McCain.
Yeah.
And that's who they trusted. They didn't really trust Bush. And so they just didn't vote. They just said, fuck it, I can't support anybody in this fucking. That's what I'm saying. He's smart enough, or someone around him smart enough to go, don't fuck with these people. Just shut up and let them do what they're going to do, and they're still going to vote your way. Because most of them would rather die than vote Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's when you find a true progressive in the military, it's a unicorn type situation. It really is. And I don't give a shit about this fucking, well, there's trans people in the military now and all this and all that. Look, you have no choice but to accept who the fuck you're stationed with. All right. But that don't mean that you got to fucking think and agree with everything they fucking do. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not a, I'm going to force you at gunpoint to agree to this and go along with it. It's, I have no choice and there's no point in arguing about it. As long as they cover my fucking six, I'm fine. And I still maintain someone around Trump is smart enough to just don't fuck with it. Leave good enough alone and enjoy the votes. That's it. But, I mean, I don't know, because if 2018 goes like you're saying, Todd, and the Democrats come in, you get a lot of Republicans swept out, what was it in NPR? Like 32 Republicans between Congress and Senate?
Oh, it was more than that.
Have said they're not running for re-election?
Mm-hmm.
They're not even attempting to?
It's a lot. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it's going to happen.
Near 50.
Okay.
It's the same thing that happened in 2010. We were talking about Paul Ryan a few minutes ago, and that's exactly what happened with the Tea Party wave. They came in, and boy, it was like just a slaughter. All the Democrats were just wanting to go out and hang themselves after that election in 2010. Me being the anti-Tea Party guy, I was right there with them. I wanted to string myself up from an oak for a few weeks after that. But yeah, it's going to happen. But and the thing that gets me is that progressives are so selectively ignorant about recent history that they see this election, this midterm election, where the out of power party has a really good year, and they see that all of a sudden as suddenly a bellwether for how the country is going to move, and they can completely forget that the opposition party always does well in midterm elections. And they completely forget about what happened in 2012, just 2 short years after the Tea Party stormed Congress. Completely forget it. So yeah, I keep telling people, you're a Democrat, you're a liberal, progressive type dude. Have a great, enjoy November. Have a beer. And stock up on antidepressants for 2020.
Well, I really think what's going to be a thorn in the Democrat side post 2018 is Hillary Clinton. That bitch will just not go away. And she's out there pissing off the people who hate her and the people who are like, I held my nose and voted for Hillary because I didn't want Trump.
Mm-hmm. That would be me.
they're now going, can this bitch shut up and go away? I mean, she goes over to another country and says the reason she wasn't elected is because toxic masculinity in the United States, and men told their wives they better vote for Trump. First of all, does this bitch know any real life couples? I don't know any men out of my friends who's going to go to their wives and say, bitch, you're going to vote the way I tell you to vote. They probably get a fucking a foot in their fucking crotch.
How are they going to know anyway? You're going to follow them into the booth and make sure they push the right button?
Exactly. But, do you see what I'm saying? She can't just accept you had a clear shot to the end zone and you started fucking showboating 10 yards out and Trump went behind you and stripped you of the ball. You can't handle that.
10,000s of listeners that listen to the Unregimented podcast weekly on the ChristopherMedia.net network. I'm sure of these tens of thousands, at least one or two of you have a direct line to Hillary. Please tell Hillary it wasn't men or any sort of sexism that beat you. It was you. People don't like you. Go away. Ride off into the sunset on Bill or something.
Well,
put Monica on a leash and walk her out into the desert somewhere. Just stay there. I don't care. Just stay there.
I mean, can you think of another presidential candidate who lost when they had, everybody thought it was a slam dunk and they just refused to go away?
That's like one of the accepted parts of presidential electoral decorum. You get beat, you go away.
I guess you could say Nixon, because Nixon lost to Kennedy in 1960, and a lot of people, the infamous debate. Those who listened on radio thought Nixon won. Those who watched thought Kennedy won, because Kennedy was more media savvy and television savvy.
Well, Nixon was sweaty and didn't use any makeup.
Yeah, but beyond that, what was the spread of the election? It was like 100,000 votes. It was razor thin.
But you get what I'm saying. It was perceived that Nixon was going to win against this young upstart because, and this is so weird to think that, oh my God, he's a Catholic.
Yeah, I know.
It's like we were watching Bill Maher the other day and Louis Anderson was on.
Uh-huh.
You realize it was only like 15 years ago that he had to leave Family Feud because of accusations that he was gay.
Was that why?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was going to be blackmailed with the details of his sexual orientation. And I'm like, who the fuck cares?
Right.
This is how I looked at Louis Anderson and I'm like, if he's getting laid, good for you, bro.
However you can get it.
The generosity of human beings never ceases to amaze me. Like, seriously. But just how absurd that is. And that's what I think of with Kennedy. We can't have a Catholic as president. The Pope's going to be, moving into the White House and all this shit.
Right.
We're going to tear down the Statue of Liberty and put up a statue of Mary Magdalene and shit.
Well, look at Jesse Jackson in the 80s. A black president. Is that ever going to happen in our lifetimes?
Yeah, I still love Eddie Murphy's take on it. He's like, Jesse might win. You white people, y'all get drunk and do some stupid shit. Come out the voting booth. I just voted for Jesse. The next day, he fucking won.
Have you guys ever tried to watch Eddie Murphy's old stuff? Like recently? Like Raw or Delirious or anything? I find it terrible. I used to love those things. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't think they're that good anymore.
I agree with you, Todd.
Yeah.
Both of y'all. I got two balls, one for each of you. I don't give a fuck. The ice cream skits classic. The barbecue skits classic.
There's good pieces of it, but it's, as a collector, because we used to go to Blockbuster when I was like 16, 17 years old, rent the VHSs and just sit there and laugh our asses off, on the weekends. And I sat there and tried to watch one of these on YouTube a few weeks or a few months ago and just, no, I can't do it anymore.
Well, but this is kind of he's in his own way a pioneer. He was part of the crew of people that were elevating the comedian to a rock star level.
Oh, fuck.
And it was a golden age for stand-up comedy as well. It was really
it was, and we wouldn't have the stand-up comedy that we have now if it wasn't for artists like him. But we've come so much further, and the audiences are so much more intelligent and savvy as to what they will accept. And
I take exception with you blaming the stand-up we have now on those classic comedians. The stand-up we have now is terrible. You said we wouldn't have the stand-up we have now. It's terrible now.
I
today. I
disagree. I disagree
Really?
completely.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you go, but I think you're mostly on an island on this one.
Who?
I got a crew who I think is good.
Yeah,
and it's the seller.
There's a few. No. I'm not saying as a collective that everybody sucks. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think stand-up comedy 25 years ago was a hell of a lot better than it is now. A hell of a lot better.
I think right now, like, you have the seller crowd. That's what they're known as. That's the Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Colin Quinn. Colin Quinn being part of the old guard. You know, Patrice O'Neal, Jim Norton, et cetera, et cetera. Those guys who, I mean, savaged each other in those clubs. They went to that club not to make the audience laugh, but to make other comedians laugh.
Right.
And I mean, if you ever watched the documentary that's on YouTube about Patrice O'Neal, all the comedians are like, we could be just ripping each other apart, and we'd see him walk down the stairs of the cellar, to the comedy cellar, and we'd be like, oh shit, daddy's home.
Yeah.
Because he'd just come in and just lay waste to every comedian there. And it was,
fair enough.
That makes you become so good at your craft, but that's such a small sect. Then you got this bullshit. I'm sorry. I know some people like him. Aziz Ansari. I tried. I'm like, how is this funny?
He doesn't.
I think he's funny.
For me. Have you guys, you know, I did a lot of, I was around the Chicago stand-up scene, and maybe my personal experience there is maybe tainting my overall picture of the entire scene. But I see what's sort of happening, I think, at these open mics and these up-and-comers in Chicago, and they're all doing the same material. There's nothing really creative coming out of there. They're all doing the same, oh, I'm fat, I'm black, I'm gay. You know, I'm the black comedian, I'm the gay comedian, I'm the fat comedian, liberalism is awesome. There's no real original material that's coming out of there. No original insights. They're basically taking the same doctrine and repackaging it in clever, witty ways.
They're prop comics, only they're the prop.
Yeah, right. And so is the ideology.
Well, one of the things I was listening to Joe Rogan, he had a few comics on, and they were talking about how New York, that style of comedy, they eat the weak. Mm-hmm. Crowds are like, the minute someone gets up there with a guitar, it's over with. You're done. You might as well just turn around and walk off stage. Now you go to L.A., and he's like, L.A. seems to have a lot more patience for the goofy type comedians, you know, like here's a guitar and some sitcom impersonations and shit like that. Whereas New York, Boston in particular, especially back, 20 years ago, I mean, that was cutthroat. Chicago, when I think of comedy in Chicago, I don't think of stand-up comedy. I think more of improv.
Improv. Yeah, it's the improv mecca of the world, man. It's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hannibal Buress is a Chicago guy.
Okay. All right. Yeah. But I mean, and then you have like the Texas scene in the 80s, Houston, which had Bill Kennison, Bill Hicks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a bunch of guys who their names escape me, but if I showed you a picture of them, you go, "Oh, I know that guy."
Ron Schock, Jimmy Pineapple.
Yep, exactly.
There's another guy that I'm drawing a blank on.
What? Who?
Jimmy, yeah.
As my friend Jimmy Pineapple said, case fucking closed.
These SpongeBob characters?
These are guys that would get blackout drunk on stage. This is the shit they did.
Yeah. Well, Bill Hicks used to, he would go on stage, I think it was before he quit drinking. And he would just go on stage, and he would go up literally intending to run the room. He wanted he wanted the room empty when he got done. He wanted to just go up there, piss everybody off to the point that he was doing a monologue by himself. That was his attitude.
If you've ever seen that documentary, American, the Bill Hicks story.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, there's some footage of it, and it's like, wow. Dude, you got balls big enough to come in a dump truck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, one of the most impressive and ballsy things I've ever seen a comedian do was Patrice O'Neal got up in front of a crowd that did not like him, did not like any of the comics before him, and he was the closer.
Okay.
And he went up there, and he looked at this one guy in the audience, and he was like, look at you. I can already tell you don't like me. Here, I'm going to give you a chance. Say whatever you want. To a big black man, get away with it for the first time in your life. And the only time in your life. You can say whatever, you can call me a nigger, well, call me whatever you want. I can see Mr. Buzzcut, you're a racist. And I mean, just started attacking the audience to the point where people were getting up and leaving. And the audience that stayed were like, he eventually won them over. But I mean, it's just like to see a comedian who's up there who knows he has no chance of killing, he's just going to bomb and go, well, if I'm going to go out, I'm taking us. It's like my cover photo. I swear to God, I'll kill us all if you fuck with me. I mean, it's just like, I'm just going to kill everybody in the room. You're all coming with me is something amazing to see.
Who do you think
takes
cutting
such
edge?
balls.
Who do you consider cutting edge?
Right now?
That's doing stand-up right now. That's come out, that's hit the scene in the last, say, 10 years.
Oh, boy.
I'm with you on Patrice O'Neal, but he's dead.
And we're coming up on 10 years of him being dead. That's rough. I mean, there's been a bunch of comedians that I was aware of through Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn who are now in the national mindset. Bill Burr, but you can't say he came up in the last 10 years. I remember Bill Burr when he had a full head of hair and he was talking about I can't wear sunglasses because gingers can't wear sunglasses. It just doesn't look right. Right. Like David Caruso is the only redhead in the world that can wear sunglasses and get away with it. And that was like 25 years ago. Groundbreaking, Eric Andre maybe, but he's not really a comedian in the sense of a stand-up. He's just, he just does such subversive shit on his show that it's like.
Right. Yeah.
Like, did he just do what I think he did type shit?
Yeah, the problem is the breeding ground though, because and this goes back to what I saw in Chicago, because there's not a friendly, welcoming place to take raw, challenging material up on stage and develop it and craft it in front of other comedians. That's how you do it. You do it in front of other comedians. You go to open mic shows and you're performing for other up-and-coming comedians, right? So you don't know if your stuff's funny or not if you're putting stuff out there that challenges anything other than the acceptable doctrine, because they won't laugh. You don't get a chance to develop that.
Well, and it's
that's one of the problems, I think, because I don't see that. I don't see these up and comers. I see a lot of people that are trying to get on that. What's that? That stand up show that's on Fox or whatever every like 3 times a year. What is that show? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
The reality stand up show.
It's where you're like in front of Roseanne Barr and 2 other judges, and they're critiquing your material and all that. And then you go. There's a bunch of comedians in Chicago that did really well on that. I tried to watch that, and it's terrible stand-up. It's so unoriginal. It's nothing that I would ever pay any kind of money to go see. It's the same shit repackaged. You just put a different outfit on him. You put a different costume on the same character that's going on stage every time. So coming out of that environment and out of that soil, I don't see anybody that's coming up challenging anything, that's being cutting edge, that's rocking the comedy world the way a Bill Hicks once did.
Well, it's funny you should say that there isn't really a platform or a venue for him to go to and really hash out material and find out what's going to work and what's not. I think the last place, and it might be dead by now, it might have changed. I mean, Mitzi Shore just died. She owned the Comedy Store.
That's right.
The Comedy Store was infamous for, I'm not going to pay you, but you can get up there and you can say anything you fucking want. She never dictated content to her comedians.
Right. Comedy Cellar in New York. I know Drew Michael. He was the one guy out of Chicago. When I was there, I caught him at the tail end of his Chicago time. And he's writing for Saturday Night Live now, and he had a Comedy Central special, half-hour special. Really good guy. Deep, intellectual, dark comedian, but he's different. You know what I mean? He stands out like a wart on Snow White's forehead when he goes on stage. And he's working at the Comedy Cellar now. He does like an hour a week there. And he's touring nationally. But other than that, I don't know of anybody else who's doing that kind of material, that kind of challenging, risky, deep probing material.
Ari Shaffir, but he is, if you don't agree with his stance, he tends to really rub people the wrong way. I sent you a video of him. He's the guy that was on Huffington Post, and they were like, so what do you feel about politics? And he's like, I don't really care. The only way to change politics is to start killing politicians. And the guy was like, he's not laughing. He's like, no, seriously, roll out the guillotines. Shit will change very quickly.
Right.
And I mean, so if you don't have that type of humor, Sean Rouse is another guy I mean, Sean Rouse, I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's got like really bad rheumatoid arthritis, and he was in the Unbookables, the documentary that Doug Stanhope did about a bunch of guys like him, touring comedians who, like, okay, they had a 3-night stand at some, like, Chuckle Hut in fucking butt-fuck Omaha somewhere.
Right.
And the first night was they're feeling the crowd out.
Mm-hmm.
So the really edgy, subversive shit didn't come out. Second night, they started letting it hang out. And they had also been drinking since the end of their first set, the first night. So it's like
that helps.
Yeah. They're now 24 hours into a 3-day bender. And so the give a fuck is just left.
Right.
And the owner comes to him and goes, look, I can't have this. You're offending my patrons. I can't have it. And if you do it, I'm going to, I'll cut you off and I won't pay you and I'll tell you to leave. And Sean Rouse is outside and he goes, you know what? Fuck it. He's going to have to tell me to leave. And he goes in and starts doing jokes about Taiwanese 12-year-old sex slaves dying in a tsunami. And he's like, oh, it isn't enough that my asshole that's been blown out by German tourists is taking in water. Now I have to fucking drown. And thank you, God. I love you. I mean, I'm doing it no justice, but I mean, I was in tears. I posted it on Facebook and I had 3 people comment and all of the comments were, Jesus Christ, dude. And I was like, you know what? That's the shit that you don't want to laugh at, but you laugh at.
Yeah.
Right.
It pulls it out of you.
This is like, I don't have good examples to draw from to prove my point, but I think this is what I was trying to get at. What's changed from the era of Eddie Murphy and the, stadium selling comedian.
George Carlin, all them.
To now. And well, George Carlin's kind of an exception, I guess, but there was, I don't know if this was a catalyst for it or just a result of it, but like around the time when the movie The Aristocrats came out, right?
Yeah.
And this was all the comedians that everybody knew already, telling jokes that they would never have told on stage, right?
This was the jokes and they said backstage.
Right. And this kind of, I'm not saying that this movie alone did it, but that was part of this opening up to what we have now with like comedians like you were describing earlier, Rich, like Jim Norton, like guys who the shit that they crack each other up with backstage, they'll take that shit right out on stage and throw it in people's faces.
Yeah, first time I saw Jim Norton talking about, so did anybody else play Monster Rain when you were a kid? And then the whole crowd was like, what the fuck's Monster Rain? He's like, well, me and my friend, we play Monster Rain. We'd be outside, it'd start raining, we'd go, Monster Rain! And then we get under the porch and I'd suck his dick.
I love Jim Norton.
Yeah.
Talking about banging trannies and shit. And he's he's like, I was, I had a threesome with me and Ron Jeremy and this random chick and she's blowing me. And every once in a while, Ron would just bury it to the base in her, and I was worrying that her teeth are going to clamp down, just take my dick off. It was like, but I wasn't worried enough to pull my dick out of her mouth, and just, like shit like that is like, yeah. And see, I know that it's hacky material now these days. But if you go back and you look at Richard Pryor when he first started, he wanted to be Bill Cosby, suit and all.
Of course. Yeah. And that's what I see when I watch Eddie Murphy now. I see Richard Pryor. He sounds like Richard Pryor. He acts like Richard Pryor in Delirious and Raw. It sounds like he's just doing Richard Pryor on stage to me.
When he was in Raw and he's talking about, I was 14 going to comedy clubs, but I didn't know, I had no life experience. So all I could do is talk about taking a shit. But I did it like Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Like, you ever take a shit and it come back on you? What's that chunk want? And he's like, I was dying. I was like, oh my God. But then I realized you're absolutely right. I'm like, that's where he got his persona.
Yeah.
That early Richard Pryor though is bizarre to watch. It's on YouTube. You can find that stuff a lot of. In fact, I think I have a video collection of that stuff. But it's just really weird to see Richard Pryor up there in his 3-piece suit trying to do milquetoast comedy.
Work clean. It's like early
watching
Carlin.
Yeah, I was just gonna say when he was the hippy dippy weatherman.
Oh yeah, Carlin was he's another case study in that. If you go back and read and listen to a lot of his stuff where he talks about the transition from doing the hippy dippy weatherman and Johnny Carson and all that. And he figured out, like, I don't want to do this shit. I don't like these people. I don't want to play for these people. I don't want to do Vegas. I want to do my stuff. And he started transitioning with that 7 words you can't say on TV or whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, that was like just this clear line of demarcation where he said, you know what, I'm going to do my stuff. And boom, he turned into he's a cultural icon now. Simply because of that.
It's kind of the same with Pryor, because I remember the suited Pryor doing the clean material.
Yeah.
And then he disappeared. Well, he didn't disappear. He wasn't as much in the public eye for like a year or two. And then the next, I don't even think it was a special. I think someone just was filming him at some small comedy club. He's got a fro. He's got a mustache. He's wearing like an army jacket.
Yeah.
And motherfucker is like his go-to. I mean, it's like taking a breath, and he's dropping every curse word he can. And it's just like, that was like, I think 72.
Right.
Yeah. And for people who watched him in like the late 60s and saw him on TV and said, oh, remember that colored comedian, that colored fellow we thought was so funny? Let's go see him. And he's up there like, yeah, y'all looking at me thinking, that nigga crazy. You know what? I am, and then they're like, oh my God, what's wrong? Are we safe?
Yeah.
They're going to riot. But no, I think you absolutely hit. I think Todd, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. There are no, in my mind, groundbreaking guys have come out in the last 10 years. Guys that set the bar, in stand up. I mean,
raise the bar.
Yeah. I mean, I like there's people I find funny that other people just don't get, and I have Zach Galifianakis. I can't pronounce his last name. Thank you. I remember his first Comedy Central special. He's just sitting in a piano and he's playing.
Right.
And he's like, I went to the Hollywood Walk of Fame and I found Tony Danza's star. And I pissed on it and I yelled, "Who's the boss now?" And for whatever reason, I fucking, I was almost
in the timing of it. Yeah. That's not really all that. You and I could probably say the same thing and we wouldn't be funny. His ability to deliver that and time it he's exquisite with his timing. That Between Two Ferns thing, you've seen that, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah.
His sense of timing and his deadpan is it's brilliant.
My favorite Zach Galifianakis bit was, oh God, what? I'm trying to remember the name of the character that he did, but I remember,
1800s guy?
The 1800s guy. Yeah, remember he had his own name and everything, and he came out with like the shoes with the buckles on him and shit.
Didn't he have a powdered wig on too?
And he's just got like the lamest jokes. He's tapping the mic. Is this thing on? What is this thing? He goes, well, I just went to New York. Well, don't go there. It takes like 3 months. Just like the dumbest shit, but it was all in the delivery.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny, but it's not groundbreaking.
No, it's
and I
not.
mean, then there's people.
Yeah.
There's people that would go like, Andy Kaufman. They'll say he was groundbreaking, and I'm like,
yeah.
Was he groundbreaking and funny, or was he just groundbreaking and bizarre? And he was a curiosity.
I think he was all 3 or 4. I thought he was hilarious. The going on stage and the Mighty Mouse thing.
Yeah.
In that context, in that period of time, and just the risks he would take.
Mm-hmm.
Going on stage and challenge. It's almost like Bill Hicks, going on stage and trying to run a room, or Patrice O'Neill, but going on stage and reading The Great Gatsby.
Yeah. Just reading. I mean, that's his act.
Yeah. I mean, he would go. It's hard to articulate, I guess, but he would do things that just were so far out there that he became almost, like you said, like a bizarre curiosity, and he was funny.
Well, the whole there's the shit with the wrestling and I'll wrestle any woman and shit.
Like, bro.
I remember some of that. I was so young, I really don't remember it very clearly.
Yeah.
But I watch clips of it and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, they used to do this shit on like regular TV and it's just shit you couldn't get away with. I mean, you watch Delirious and Eddie Murphy's throwing around the word fag like, it's nothing.
Yeah, right.
But, still, almost every comedian had their homosexual material at that point. Sam Kinison did.
Yeah.
He flipped it up with homosexual necrophiliacs and he's like, yeah, life keeps fucking you in the ass even after you die. Boom. He put a new spin on it, but I don't know. I don't know if right now the pop culture temperature in this country is right for a comedian to come out and start fucking kicking down walls and kicking open doors.
No,
we're just so worried about offending everybody and everybody's got a cell phone.
I'm offended bar is so low now that you can't.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I watched the most recent Ricky Gervais Netflix special. And I know that he's not everyone's cup of tea, but he cracks me up.
I like him.
But the shit that he gets away with saying is kind of ridiculous. Like he has a whole joke about, I think it was like why men don't have babies. Because we'd just fucking kill them. We'd be like, oh geez, ring up the wife. Oh, the babe, it's dead already. It's fucking dead. Look at this thing. It's blue. And he's miming like he's holding it up by like a foot and like tossing it around like, Jesus, this thing's useless. What is it?
These things aren't built very well.
We gotta make another one already.
Yeah. If you don't roll them off of their stomach, they smother themselves. These things are not intelligent. This
is defective.
But he already has something going for him. Like if nobody had heard of Ricky Gervais and he came out with that Netflix special,
oh shit,
there's no way he'd have a career after that.
Right.
No.
Not after that one joke, but I mean the cumulative effect of all the offensive things that he says.
Well, there's now this.
It's like if you ever watched what was the show with with Warwick Davis on it, the guy who was in Willow.
Extras or Life is Short.
Life is Short.
Okay.
Right, and so there's a part in there where Liam Neeson is auditioning. Not auditioning, but he's practicing with Ricky Gervais because he wants to do more comedy, right? And he's like, people don't think I'm funny, and he's like, okay, let's do a skit together, okay? You're a doctor and I come in for my, consultation and we'll just go from there. And Liam Neeson's like, okay, let me look at your chart here. It says here you have AIDS. And Ricky Gervais is like, well, you can't really do that. That's not, you can't just talk about AIDS, right? And he's like, well, you do it. How do you get away with it? And he's like, I have no idea.
Well, I was going to say
but there's certain, but my point being that there are certain comedians that we've decided to give a pass to and say, we'll accept this from them, but we don't seem to be open to who is going to be the next cutting edge comedian. I'm not saying that Ricky Gervais is that cutting edge comedian. I don't think we have an environment where somebody who is cutting edge can be successful as well.
I'm starting to find, outside of a handful of stand-ups that we've already talked about, the comedy that I think is at least appeals to me the most is stuff that from non-traditional areas. Like I had to look it up because I couldn't remember the name of the movie exactly. It's a mockumentary about vampires called What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
And it's the Flight of the Conchord guys. It's
right.
The director of Thor Ragnarok and it like a couple other people. And it's very like New Zealand. They're in New Zealand and all this and the shit that for whatever reason, like it plays better. And I was laughing my ass off at that movie. Like I'm one of those guys. I've watched so much comedy. I very rarely laugh out loud.
Oh yeah.
But I find shit funny.
Yeah.
People be like, my ex-wife, I used to drive, she's like, is this funny to you? And I'm like, it's fucking hilarious, but it takes a lot to pull a laugh out of me. It's almost like you shock a laugh out of me sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was laughing out loud at that movie. And I was sitting there, I'm like, when's the last time I actually laughed out loud at a comedy movie?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't really think of many in the last 10 years. I mean, I enjoy them, like the Will Ferrell, Marky Mark one where they're cops. Yeah, it was an amusing movie, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I have to go get that movie and own it because
was it
it's
the
hilarious.
Other Guys?
Yes, the other guys.
Even a solid comedy.
Even Kevin Smith movies. I mean, even though he's went dark recently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, except for Yoga Hosers, but like
I love that movie.
I think Dogma was the last one. No, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I think that was the last one that really got me to laugh out loud. And most of it was the meta shit. You know, hey, you know, we have a code 128. No, I wasn't with a hooker last night. And you know, Jason Bourne's like, God damn it, Ben, another hooker? Really? Really? But like, even television shows, I know you guys love Curb Your Enthusiasm. I could just never get into it. I think just because I haven't sat down and watched it.
Show. I fucking love that show.
I've always caught it in the middle of an episode, and I'm like, I kind of know what's going on, but I kind of don't. And it's like Arrested Development. If you start watching it in the middle of season 2, you're not going to get a lot of jokes that were set up in season 1.
The thing about Curb Your Enthusiasm is, and it kind of reminds me a lot of like what we were talking about with Zach Galifianakis and going back to Andy Kaufman too. A lot of it is you want to laugh because you want to release that tension. Mm-hmm. That person is building up this tension,
cringe humor,
and when it finally breaks, like you want to release that. That laugh is almost cathartic.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
the thing with him is Larry David reminds me of me in that show.
Oh yeah,
entirely too much. It's like the clip I posted, I think, to my Facebook page. You didn't see it, obviously, Aaron, but it's the thank you for your service episode.
Oh, my favorite.
He's standing there with an Iraq vet and his wife, and everybody's thank you for your service, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. How you doing? I gotta go step outside. What? What'd I say? You didn't thank him for his service. What, does everybody gotta thank him for his service? Yeah. Get the fuck out, Larry.
Well, also, it's something kind of insidious that I've noticed started happening in a lot of stand-up comedy is, and I'm hesitant to even bring it up, but I've started to see labels be applied to comedians along political lines. There's the woke crowd, and there's the alt-right comedians. And an example of like woke would be Aziz Ansari.
Right.
And alt-right would be that Owen Benjamin guy who got booted from Twitter because he couldn't stop tweeting about David Hogg's pubic hairs.
Right.
And like when look, you said something a few weeks ago, Aaron. You said, you know, politics is involved in everything. You can't not politicize things. Okay, I get that. But when I walk into a comedy show, I leave all that bullshit at the door. I'm there to laugh. And if you want to make me laugh through politics, Bill Hicks could do it. He'd make me laugh through politics, you know, but I don't want to be preached at and be told a joke every once in a while.
Right. Well, sure. Well, either I'm being misquoted or I didn't make my point clear enough, but it's not that politics needs to be infused into everything. It's not that I don't know. Anyway.
The thing with comedy, the thing with stand-up comedy is it's stand-up comedy. You have to be funny first, and if you want to get political, you have to be funny politically, not political and kind of funny. You know what I mean? Rogan, the whole point is to make people laugh. People are going to be entertained to laugh at you, not like Rich said, to be preached at.
Joe Rogan talks about this every once in a while on his podcast about how when he first started, it was really, you know, when he started in the 80s, that's when Carlin was really getting to be the curmudgeonly old Carlin. Like it was starting. Like he had been cynical in the 70s, but he was starting to get like just jaded as fuck in the 80s.
Angry.
And he goes, there was so many comedians who I could go to any open mic night. even if it was a paying gig and I was third on the bill, one of the guys would be up there and he'd be doing his version of Carlin.
Right.
And then Bill Hicks came.
Like Lewis Black.
Yeah. And then Bill Hicks came. And he's like, he goes, even before the man died, but especially after he died, you saw a lot of people going up there doing a version of Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
And he said the last comedian he really saw it happen to was Patrice O'Neal. And he's like, and a lot of it was people go up there and it's like, who speaks for men these days? So I'm going to get up here and exercise all the demons that guys fucking think about and the dumb shit we talk about and whatever. And he's like, and it lost, when people started doing it, everything lost the novelty that the originators had brought to it. It became just a carbon copy of a carbon copy. It's like when I go to an open mic night and I see a guy walk in and he's got a fucking, custom shop, I can't even think of it. Would they beat it up for you? You know what I'm talking about?
A Relic.
Relic Strat. The Stevie Ray Vaughan wide brim black hat. The music note fucking, strap. And I'm like, dude, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan as much as the next guy. It's one of the main reasons I picked up guitar. Bro, you ain't him. Stop. Take some elements from him, but take from other people, mix it up in a pot, and come up with your own jumbo here.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on, as far as stand-up goes, though, that depends on where you're at in your career, too, because that's how you learn. You find somebody that you identify with, that you admire, you respect, and, you do them. You go up and you do them, and you slowly start whittling that away until you have your own original sort of persona. There's nothing wrong with emulating somebody in the beginning. But you eventually, like you said, Rich, you have to start, take elements of it, that's fine, but then you've got to create the original product, your own brand.
Well, I mean, it's the same with musicians. I mean, when I first started playing, everybody wanted to play like Eddie Van Halen and Yngwie Malmsteen and all this shit. Everybody was practicing sweep arpeggios and diminished harmonic minor, scales and shit. And I'm like, y'all want to jam some Albert King? They're like, no. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the Robert Johnson box set come out, and all these shredders are sitting there trying to talk to me about how they've always been into Robert Johnson and respected him. And I'm like, get the fuck out of my face. Motherfucker, you didn't even know that they didn't make pointy guitars that could put your eye out until like 3 minutes ago. Shut up. Stop. And stop using Aquanet. You're putting a hole in the ozone layer, all right? What the fuck's wrong with you? And it's just... so I've always been outside of the norm. And, the few times I've tried, like, stand-up, I'm just not built for it. I'm not. Because I'm going to have to be the guy that goes up there and clears the room on purpose, because that's the only way I feel comfortable on stage. It's just like, you suck. You suck. Oh, I've tried it a few open mic nights. It did not go well. Just around here locally.
Really?
Different venues and shit. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, dude. We would play shows, and in between shows while we're switching out the back lines and stuff, they'd give like a guy like 15, 20 minutes on the mic.
Just doing stand-up.
Yeah, between bands. And one of the ways I got invited to do it was the guy was bombing on stage, and he was also a dick who kicked my fucking pedal board out of the way. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And I didn't give a shit. I was interrupting the show, and he started trying to like roast me. And I just fucking lit into him on stage. And the owner was like, that shit was funnier than him. Do you want to try that one sometime? And I'm like, if I got enough drugs and alcohol in me, sure. Yeah, why not?
You know what we should do? We should get like a weekend, find a mic up there, and just go try it again.
Fuck
like all three of us
terrifying.
And just get lit up. You don't have to go up, Aaron, but you and I could, Rich. I did a little bit of that in Chicago, too.
I'll do it if you guys do.
That'd be kind of fun. I don't want to go to like some prestigious place or anything like that, but some fucking hole in the wall.
See, I
don't have a lot of shame.
I'd have to like dust off my bits. Like the one that I come up with that I thought was somewhat good was, you ever look at the Girl Scout calendars and there's always these fat ugly bitches? That's so the child molesters don't have anything to jerk off to. And I just like went into it in detail, and my buddies would crack up and laugh, and then I did that in front of an audience, and I sat there and watched people's horrified expressions. And I was like, oh, I read this room wrong.
No, those horrified expressions, man, are great. I love them. My favorite bit that I did, and what really pains me that I never actually followed through on doing stand-up was back in 2014. This was before it really hit the zeitgeist, the thoughts and prayers thing. I've been harping on that. I swear to God, I'm not making this up, on thoughts and prayers since like 2010. Like all the fucking time, like Facebook, whoever would listen to me. So when I was doing stand-up in Chicago in 2013, 2014, at least the open mics and trying to get started in it, that was one of the first bits I wrote up, was on thoughts and prayers. And it was about a year and a half after I quit doing it that it started finding its way into the cultural discussion. And it pisses me off to this day that I didn't sit there and actually try to develop that while I was in Chicago. Because, maybe I don't know that I would have went anywhere with it, but when that popped up in the discussion culturally, people would have remembered me.
Well, that's the thing, is that I didn't take it like as seriously as I took my guitar playing or these podcasts. I didn't sit and critique myself and refine the bits and this and that. I was just like, okay, I did it. I always told myself I'd try it at least once or twice. I did it once or twice. I got a few laughs, but I was like, I'm much better at other things, you know.
Well, that was the thing. That was the thing with me. I never really gave myself permission to suck at it either. When you start out and you've only, like when the first 2 times you touched a guitar, you weren't that good at the guitar either. No. It's one of those things that you have to give yourself a chance and permission to suck so you can get good. And stand-up that's exactly what that is. You can't go up there and take it personally. You have to understand where the hell you're at.
I also had a guy in at one of the second time I did it, he was like, so you think it's going to be something you stick with? And I was like, no, not really. And he goes, can I say something? And I'm like, what? He goes, just sitting here talking to you, you're a funny guy, but not all funny people are meant to be stand-ups.
Right.
Because if you don't feel the need to get up there and do it and work on it and refine it, then maybe it's just not for you. Find another avenue and outlet for it. And he's like, and I'm not trying to discourage you. He goes, but if you don't, it's like if I started picking up guitar and, can I get lessons from you? And then after 6 months, I still only know G, C, and D. Obviously, I'm not driven to learn more. No matter how many lessons you give me and how much you show me, it's not going to make me sit down and practice it and hone my craft.
Right.
Which is, I don't really do it much anymore, but I used to listen to every fucking podcast at least 2-3 times. All the way through, headphones, in the car.
Yeah.
Dissecting, not you guys.
No, I know. I don't even listen to you guys when I listen to them. I'm not kidding. I don't. I'm trying to figure out if I'm crutching on things, if I'm repeating myself. I say, all the fucking time. I figured that out.
Well,
but yeah, you go through and you critique yourself. And you try to improve and you try to figure out when to shut up and there I go again, It's just, it's one of those things. Yeah, you're trying to improve.
I think it was the first month after doing Unregimented with the guys, Chris was like, so I could tell that you've hung out in urban areas. I'm like, why do you say it? Because you sound like Butter's bottom bitch. You know what I'm saying? Know what I mean? Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I know what you're saying. There's no need to keep asking. Yes, I know what you are saying. So
are we all ever crutches?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You didn't. I don't think you went to Specs, but that's the one thing that they at least when I was there, they made us aware of. Is we all have something that we crutch on when we don't know what to say. A lot of us, it's
Mm-hmm.
Me, it's at this point. I hate it. I want to poke myself in the eardrum every time I say it. But
this used to drive one of the instructors crazy, but we had probably half the class. 640 AM WNLD, Southfield's best mix. That was Starship with We Built This City. Next up, a little bit of Eric Clapton with, and he's like, a little bit. Stop saying a little bit. He's like, It's like, you hit the post, but stop saying a little bit. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, slow down just a little bit, and you'll hit the post without saying a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The one thing about that you mentioned about stand-up, though, that I guess that I wanted to throw in there before we move away from that is the urge to perform. I got into this in the Demon podcast for escapingthecave.com, by the way, where the addiction, I think, to stand-up comedy, where people get really involved in it, is the immediacy of it. In other words, we're doing a podcast right now. We don't know who's listening. We have no idea how people are going to react to it. It's not going to come out for another couple of days. When you're a stand-up and you're on stage, I'm assuming it's kind of like being a musician, but I think it's more intense in the sense that you're up there alone, you're speaking into a microphone, and the response and the approval or disapproval from the audience is immediate.
It's immediate and all on you. I mean, you're playing with the band, you'd be like, I guess they don't like the bass player.
Right.
You can blame it on somebody else, but if you're doing stand-up on... It's all you.
Yeah, that urbanized bass player. He just fucked up. But yeah, and you can get addicted to that. That approval. And it turns into, it's like you were talking about with Facebook and the likes earlier. It's this dopamine rush that you get so absorbed in getting that and so addicted to it that becomes the drive.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about how many comedians you've heard interviewed, and they're like, well, I started out just trying to get my dad's attention or just trying to stand out amongst a family of 6 people.
Or as a defensive mechanism to keep from getting my ass beat at school.
Right.
It's a stereotype, and but it's true. Most of the funny people I know severely damaged people growing up.
Yeah.
And I rarely meet a very good-looking, very funny person who didn't have some sort of like trauma in their childhood.
Right.
Now, to what extent everybody's tolerance level for trauma is different. So, I mean, parents getting divorced at 5 could be his trauma, whereas, you could have been passed around, but neighborhood pedophiles, like a party joint, is the trauma for somebody else.
Right.
But when I meet people who aren't funny, who have just a very 40-degree day personality, almost to a person, they come from what we would think of as the waspy, stereotypical home.
Right.
Mom, dad, white picket fence.
No worries.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
No anxiety at all. And you can take that all the way up the chain into, at least from what I saw in Tucson and then again in Chicago, is that the stand-ups who were there, the ones that I got to know enough to actually sort of delve into their history a little bit, that runs all the way up the chain. The ones that are in Chicago that are successful, they all have something. But the thing that they did was they identified it. They understand what it is to some degree, and they figured out a way to use it. And those are the people that, if you watch Drew Michael, he's a kind of a slightly damaged young man. And he understands that, and he knows how to bring it on stage. And these comics, the really successful ones, know how to personalize that, make it funny, and connect with the audience, that vulnerability. But yeah, they're all almost invariably scarred somehow, in some way. And that addiction, getting that approval, and it's a really dangerous thing because you can't fill that. You can never get enough of it. If you can get an uproaring, standing ovation at the end of this set, and if you don't get that next time, you've regressed. It's not something that's ever sustainable. That's the danger of it. That's why you get somebody like Robin Williams who, commits suicide because he can never get enough of it. It's like a drug.
I'll tell you, this podcast is starting to become unsustainable. It's about time to wrap this one up.
Holy shit. Yeah. What are we at? 3.5 hours?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, no. This is great. But it is time to thank everyone for downloading and listening. And if you like this show, just tell somebody.
Tell Anna Kendrick. Anna Kendrick.
Yes. Oh, yes. If you know Anna Kendrick, make sure she listens. But no, you can also engage us in some conversation even, or just follow us on Twitter or Facebook at, what is it, Unregimented Pod?
Yeah, that's Twitter. Facebook's just Unregimented.
Unregimented on Facebook, Unregimented Pod on Twitter.
Check out the other shows at ChristopherMedia.net.
Absolutely, like Escaping the Cave.
Yes. I haven't done shit with that in 3 weeks. Sorry.
And if everything goes as planned, we might have a new show to premiere in the next week or two. So.
There you go.
Ooh.
And that one's going to be very not safe for work, for adults only, and you better have an iron stomach. That's what I'm going to say.
So we'll see you guys next week.
Bye. I'll miss you.
Guys.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook by searching for Christopher Media. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool. Only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool. Only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.